Village logs, ritual, monsters, Satanism Mag, Maxine Mag, hidden records at some point, then followed through there, vampire, succubus, witch, undead, fox spirit, records. Future Flare here after the recording of this video. There have been so many times throughout the video I've mispronounced names and got like the pronunciations of names incorrectly, so please forgive me for that one if you do know the correct pronunciation of all of the names within the game, but I'm not a native Korean and stuff like that when it comes to these mythologies and stuff like that, so I do apologise in advance, but I hope you all enjoy the video and the storytelling regardless. History of Hope Hill Village. A beginner's guide to Hope Hill Village. Hello there, and welcome to Hope Hill Village. This booklet, handed out to every single resident, we won't give one, was designed to help you understand this great place better. Be careful with your copy, there are only few in circulation. Hope Hill Village itself has only recently been established. Our great bishop has been praying to Satan for Mammon's resurrection for a long time, and shortly after receiving a divine response, he offered the village to be built. The bishop, in direct contact with Satan, knew the village had to be built where Mammon had been laid to rest. With great effort, Hope Hill Village was built in secret. All building materials were chosen by hand to make it look inconspicuous. Ho Chian Seo, the man in charge of construction, was officially recognized as a priest and still works hard for Hope Hill Village to this day. Though there wasn't much time to build Hope Hill, all our combined efforts resulted in the great place you see today. We hope you enjoy your stay here, in this magical place, where you are blessed enough to be among the first to see Mammon rise and reclaim his rightful throne once again. Village Leaflet. Important note to all villagers, as of today we are proud to confirm every household has working water and electricity. Though it was a long and difficult undertaking, our connections to various officials have enabled us to siphon power from other towns in the province, allowing us to keep Hope Hill's existence a secret without sacrificing quality of life. That's suspicious. We are still highly dependent on generators and our own limited fuel reserves, however. So please bear in mind all lights have to be turned off at 11 PM. Our motel being the only exception. I wonder why. Administrator Ho Chian Seo, for our protagonist of the story, of course. Bishop's Notes 1. The man sent by Satan himself is scheduled to arrive here tomorrow. I shall welcome him and leave Hope Hill for a while afterwards. I do not wish to risk getting in the way of what is to come. I did some research on him in advance so as to properly greet him. He wishes to be called by no name, and instead wants to be viewed as nothing more than a vessel for the great Lord Satan. He said he would attend the grand ritual, and wants to be referred to as simply the Witness. I can't help but ask myself, why would we need a witness to observe this event? If keeping an eye on things is the only intention, then Satan himself could easily watch our every move from this throne. And if interference was a true goal, then Satan would have sent a different entity altogether rather than a mere proxy. As a mere human mortal, it is often difficult to grasp the force of that which is infinitely greater than ours. Do not disillude yourself, my man. Bishop's Notes 2. I'm leaving Hope Hill Village tomorrow. I have served as an anchor and beacon to my fellow residents up until now, but I should make way to allow for all attention to be focused on Satan's representatives. It is hard because I know many people here trust me more than anyone or anything else. Satan's support in aiding me with Mammon's resurrection has been nothing but generous. I truly believe that our prayers have reached him, and that we have been blessed, morbidly. Fret not, for everything is going according to plan. Truthfully, things have never gone this smoothly in the past before. That's why the little things bother me more than usually. I have closely analysed the records of Novena Diabolos for the year 16something again. Does the ritual truly exist? Why have we not found a single record about it having succeeded? I cannot help but worry because of these unsolved questions. Doesn't matter. Anything for Mammon. Handwritten notes. Having watched them for a few days, I can still not get used to these servants of Satan. These ethereal beings served as protectors of Satan's personal domain, and though they look vaguely human in shape, they reject us and we are intimidated by them, making it hard to live together. Some among us acted like naive children and worshipped them as holy beings at first. That has since changed and nobody is too fond of them anymore. An administrator who walked alongside one of these beings once stepped on the mist by accident, and it instantly lashed him out and tossed him away. They do not appear to possess any emotions whatsoever, but I can't say anything for certain. Have they really been sent here for the purpose of helping us? In my humble opinion, they have a mind of their own, which they follow. 9-day ritual grand event. The 9-day ritual, an event guide, sorry. Our cult of Mammon has dedicated everything to Lord Mammon's resurrection. Bishop Kim eventually discovered a way to pull it off. It is a 9-day ritual called Novena Diabolos. The requirements for the ritual are as follows. First, we need 5 demons serving as potential vessels for our great Lord Mammon. Second, these 5 will have to be summoned by martyrs following our cause. Third, a chosen one must choose a vessel and perform the last step. These are only the absolute basics in simple terms. Selected martyrs must perform the rituals to call forth these monsters, and the chosen one cannot be allowed to know of the role he plays in this divine event. To ensure this, he is to be kept away from other people as much as possible and should remain undisturbed. The event shall commence soon. As a resident of Hope Hill Village, your task is to make everything go smoothly for all parties involved. The martyrs, the demons, and the chosen one. Martyrs being the 5 waifus of this game. 9-day ritual, chosen one. As is subtly implied by the name, the ritual's goal is to resurrect Mammon on the 9th day. A chosen one is key to the success of the ritual's final last-minute steps. He mustn't be aware of his purpose, and has to choose Mammon's vessel on his own free will. It is strictly prohibited to interfere with the chosen one's choices, as it is only his own free will that counts. The player that selects the choices for said chosen one. The 5 vessels shall present themselves to him as beautiful women. The village will gradually change day to day, and on the 9th day the chosen one will select his woman of choice and attempt to flee alongside her. It is then that Mammon's new vessel will kill the chosen one, his spilled blood finalizing the sacrificial rites. As stated before, it is important to remember never to intimidate, threaten, or otherwise manipulate the chosen one. Our intentions are pure, and Mammon's resurrection must not be sullied by conduct unworthy of his sublime splendor. Should the chosen one find out about what is going on, his behavior may change drastically, and all our efforts would end up having been for naught. 9-day ritual, martyr side. Among the most important parts of the ritual is the actual process of summoning the monster serving as Mammon's potential future vessel. Frankly put, these creatures are ignorant and vain. They are unfaithful, leading immortal lives thanks to Mammon's infinite love, yet they remained inactive when Mammon's death came. Turning them into worthy vessels is a task that is left to us, and their blasphemous bodies have to be cleansed with our pure blood. For this purpose, 5 martyrs have been selected. Over the course of this 9-day ritual, they will serve the monsters and subsequently be killed by them. The death of those holy martyrs will cleanse the demons' bodies, eventually turning them into pure, suitable vessel for our Lord Mammon. There is no other way to say this. The hellish suffering the martyrs will have to endure is nothing short of enormous. We need to aid them however we can. It is our task to steer them back on the right track when their resolve weakens. Always remember that without martyrs, the whole event is bound to fail. Bishop's Speech 1. Year 20-something. Advent Lenter for the Diocese. May Mammon's touch reach you all, my dear fellow believers. Our flock has suffered terribly over the last few decades without our Lord and Shepherd Mammon to guide us. We have collectively vowed to view Mammon's disappearance as not just a lamentable crisis, but also a challenge and a true test of faith. We have all endured for so long, honouring his name after he died, protecting his rightful throne from the enemy. Everyone, I hereby officially declare the coming year the year of resurrection. If we keep praying and showing unwavering faith, Satan will surely bestow upon us the knowledge required to resurrect Mammon. My dear beloved community, not much longer. An era of greatness is nigh. Keep your hearts strong and your prayers honest. On this glorious Advent Sunday, Bishop's Kaiwan Kim. Bishop, not bishops. Bishop's Speech 2. Year 20-something. Easter Letter from the Diocese. Mammon's blessings upon each and every one of you, my dear fellow brethren in faith. I am sure most of you are to some degree familiar with the failed resurrection of Barith in 1600. Barith was a rebel who dared challenge his great father Satan's throne and lost. Barith wanted his sins to be washed away in blood, but Satan did not respond to his pleas. My dear friends, we have chosen the day where Barith's followers failed spectacularly, and shall use it to remember and praise Lord Mammon. Trust me when I say I sympathize with lambs who have lost their shepherd, but the failure of Barith's resurrection shows that we need to be properly prepared. Please remain faithful as you put the finishing touches on our new home. On this glorious Easter day, Bishop Kaiwan Kim. Year 20-something. Christmas letter from the Diocese. Mammon's infinite grace upon you, my dearest, most faithful flock. Today calls for a glorious Christmas celebration. Without our Lord and Shepherd Mammon, there is no one there to hear our praises and prayers. Do not despair, friends. Today also happens to be the birthday of Mammonism itself. Mammon and our religion are as one. So relish this day and celebrate our continued devotion. Enjoy yourselves. Both our bodies and souls are exhausted from the grief we all share over Mammon's death. Neither your bodies nor your souls are your own. Stay strong, for they are resources used in the resurrection of Mammon. Keep them energized so Mammon may prosper yet again. Never lose sight of the greatness that lies ahead. On this praiseworthy Christmas day, Bishop Kaiwan Kim. Bishop's Note 4, or Bishop's Speech 4, sorry. The year is 20-something. Solemnity of the Holy Father Satan, letter from the Diocese. May Mammon's touch reach you all, and Father Satan's blessings upon you, my fellow friends in faith. Today's grand festivities are all in the name of great Satan. At last, the day has come that our wait shall end, and our prayers bear fruit. Beloved faithful, Novena Diabolos is actually real. Very much so. Satan's favourite child Mammon can be resurrected, and we have a lot of preparation ahead of us on this divine ritual, As the head of your parish, I cannot contain my joy. As of now, we shall fully devote ourselves to successfully carrying out Novena Diabolos. Let us accomplish wonders through our combined effort in the name of our Lord Mammon. Mammon, sorry, I'll call it Mammoth then. On this blessed day of solemnity, Bishop Kwon Kim. Villager's Letter 1. About Bujong Kim, I am aware that you are dissatisfied with your recent demotion from your position as priest, but the others worry about you complaining too much. I, too, have been a priest for 20 years, and can't say I fully support this decision, but it seems like the ones replacing us are not human beings. It appears these protectors of Satan himself have been sent to help us resurrect Mammon. I wonder, will they see the purity of our faith and accept us as equals in belief? Don't forget, the demotion is but temporary. With Mammon resurrected, we will once again serve him as his loyal priesthood, so the name of our position now should not be of concern. Keep your focus on what's most important. No emotions. Administrator Sunyeon Park. Villager's Letter 2. To my son, more than half of this eventful year has already gone by. I am doing well. All the people here are earnest and sincere, and the priests work hard to guide us. I'm really happy that things are going so well. Once this event is over, things will be better than ever before. Yesterday, the fog they had told us about started to spread. I would love for you to see it for yourself. It is beautiful and intimidating at the same time. According to our leaders, nobody can come or go once the chosen one has arrived here. I really want to send this letter before that happens, but there may not be enough time left. Do not worry about your father. Focus on your work. Mammon's blessings will reach your business next year. With love, your father. Villager's Letter 3. Mr. Park, there is something that needs to be said. I was opposed to the idea of letting you run the restaurant, but it was a majority vote. However, I think you have crossed the line now. Yes, the meals are delicious. Yes, we all know you're not actually cooking them yourselves. So what in our Mammon's name made you raise the prices? Do not get the facts twisted. You are one of us, not an actual restaurant owner. If you keep causing friction with such uncommunal actions, you may very well face formal explosion. Don't forget what our purpose is and why this town exists. Jonion Pyo. Monsters. History of vampires. The myth of a vampire is one that can be found in every corner of the world. Some people still consider them nothing more than a telltale, but numerous historical records of them, as well as reports of people having been bitten by them, beg to differ. The umbrella term vampire for blood-sucking things most likely has its linguistic origins in Eastern Europe. The overall more modern perception of vampires possessing an aristocratic and antique image is a purely fictional one coined by Bram Stoker's book. In truth, vampires take various forms and exist all over the world, hidden away in the dark, not in sunlight. Powerful ones live among humans unnoticed, while most lesser ones hide in the darkness of cellars, alleys, and attics, waiting for their prey to be isolated. Your odds of meeting them are low, and so are your odds of surviving if they actually do. I recommend trying to run. Reality is not like the movies and books, so clutching a cross and throwing garlic isn't going to help you much. Exactly. That's what fiction and these sort of things like to tell you, but that's not going to work. Just get away from it. Vampires around the world. Vampires are often given nicknames by the hunters that target them. Their official names are mostly based on the Romanian words of herbivorous animals, so as to emphasize that they are the ones being hunted. The following are just a couple of the most famous examples. Mistrit, unofficially named Cross Defiler. This beast was a vicious killer in the 1700s, hiding in London, where it killed a total of 18 people. The hunt for it was led by Bill Barker, It is said that Mr. Barker stuffed the beast's head and proudly hung it up in his house. Lemuel, nicknamed the Winter Cave Ragman, so that was the one that Nima is, a vampire who lived in Bergen, Norway in 1800 something. Famous for making its victims go missing to keep its existence a secret, 7 hunters led by a man named Brad died during the desperate hunt. The creature was never found. Nima. Capriora, active in 2000 something. This vampire lived as a handsome man in Osaka, Japan. He lured and killed women. The official number of deaths is 10. A group of 3 hunters led by a man named Sato Hasegawa managed to track him down and kill him. It is said the vampire's power was very weak because it had adapted too much to human society. About vampire hunters. It would be easy to portray vampire hunters as fanatic radicals with a lust for bloodshed, but the truth is that most have a very personal motive and have lost friends and family to these beasts. This in turn means that the marks of a vampire's doing were clearly left on the bodies in these particular instances. Only careless or overconfident vampires would leave traces, as most try to keep their existence a secret. Because of this, it is actually common for vampires to not interfere with vampire hunters on a job. In their eyes, those who get hunted were reckless enough to get discovered, which is bad for all vampires collectively. Silver bolts and crossbows are used when hunting. These silver bolts are retrieved and sharpened in order to be used again. Although there have been a lot of debates about the actual usefulness of silver bolts, field experience have shown them to be effective, though not as effective in the early days of vampire hunting. These bloody hunts usually end with the vampire defeated, though nearly always at the cost of many hunters' lives. History of witches. Witch is an umbrella term for female sorcerers who deal in primitive, prohibited magic. Records of witches have been found all over the globe, Egypt, India, and Italy, as well as other places in Europe and the African continent, so around the Mediterranean, but also Asia. Our modern image and perception of witches are mostly influenced by the witch hunters in medieval Europe. These witch hunts, carried out in light of the religious cross following the failed Crusades, were terrible massacres lasting until the 18th century, and radical Catholics mixed all manner of fantastical and religious imagery to justify this butchery. Today, demonologists agree that witch means a woman under the devil's contract, and they are classified as monsters, having left their humanity behind. These real witches remained hidden back then, and spent the witch hunts secretly laughing at the innocent women burned in their stead. Nowadays, they are said to live among humans, using powerful magic and their charisma to reign over foolish, susceptible mortals. Witches around the world. There are plenty of records about witches worldwide, but were simply crazed killers, innocent women, or stage magicians with excellent swordsman skill. What follows is a list of actual witches, uncovered by experts and demonology scholars. Whatever that one's called. A witch discovered in Naples, Italy in 1800 something. This witch, responsible for numerous heinous acts, ruled over a group of criminals. It was hard to get to her because she was always guarded by her goons, but a brave hunter disguised himself as one of the lackeys, killed her, and escaped successfully. Apple seller. This quite ridiculously named witch was found in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam in 1900 something. The witch, who had been selling apples at Benfell Market in Ho Chi Minh, used deceptive charisma and manipulative magic to drive a wedge between the other merchants. She enjoyed seeing them fight and even kill each other over petty business, but was soon found by hunters who put an end to her sick games. And now the Witch of Ruin. She was discovered in Seoul, Korea in 2007, and was at the center of the largest political scandal in Korean history. This witch in particular had an undying love for gaining control over countries and destroying them from within. Luckily, this witch manipulating the president from behind the scenes was exposed by whistleblowers. However, she managed to escape unharmed. As a direct result of this incident, the Korean president was impeached and a new government was established. The tragic witch hunts. On December 5th, 1484, a guidebook titled Hammer of Witches was widely circulated. The book, written by Henrik Kramer of the Dominican Order, though sometimes credited to Jacob Spranger, even managed to get the attention and support of Pope Innocent VIII. The book was a contemporary and witch hunting guide detailing hunting practices, torture methods, and legal procedures of witch trials. Though the true mastermind behind the book was a witch named Flonka Zernig. The witch, whose name roughly means lying tongue, first approached Henrik in the guise of a sickly child whilst he was at the chapel of the Dominican Order, which is where she began infecting his mind with misinformation. In the end, her manipulation led to Kramer writing one of the most inhumane, vile books in all of history. Thousands upon thousands of innocent women died brutal deaths at the stake, while the real witches survived this misguided inquisition wholly unscathed. Pain, suffering, misery, thousands of innocent lives taken, all because of one book. Mina as Lemuel, and Sumi is Witch of Ruin. So now Fox, it is History of Fox Spirits. The legend of the nine-tailed fox spirit is one commonly found all over East Asia. One of the first mentions of them in Classic of Mountains and Seas goes, the land of Qinghui lies north of Tianwu, so China. The foxes there have 4 legs and 9 tails. Geographically, this country of foxes appears to be located where Korea is. In East Asian folklore, especially China and Japan, these fox spirits are able to mesmerize people and assume the shape of beautiful evil women. This is different in Korean folklore, where these fox spirits show great efforts to become human and often face severe tragedy in their quest to do so. It is said they have to eat 1,000 livers and then marry a man and abstain from all manner of violence for 1,000 days to become human, a curse which makes one's imagination run rampant, and explain why some among them would prefer to remain human indefinitely and shed their primal predatory nature. Famous fox spirit researcher Wan Ti Han, active during the Japanese colonial era, established many theories. Fox spirits gain new powers by entering a forced contract with the devil, abandoning free will and their own life in the process. In other words, their struggle to become human is an attempt at escaping from this otherwise eternal evil. These theories are still a major influence on modern-day researchers, and the link between foxes and the devil is a theory commonly accepted within demonology circles. Fox spirits around the world. Heartpiercer is our dear friend Hannah. Fox spirits are known for being especially rare. Unlike other common monsters, a fox spirit needs to survive for a very, very long time before it acquires magical powers. For hyperbole, there is a reason a lot of literature refers to them as thousand-year foxes. The following is a list of examples of fox spirits discovered in modern times. Grey Shadow, discovered in Weihai, Shandong Province, China in 1820 something. Originally born close to the Swedish trail, this Arctic fox fled to China to escape its hunters. However, the hunters remained persistent, chasing it all the way to China and ultimately killing it with an elaborate trap. Rip Grey Shadow. Heart Piercer, discovered in whatever that location is, Korea 1980 something. This fox took over the appearance and identity of a schoolteacher who had died in an accident, looking indistinguishable from the original. However, while in human form, this fox spirit killed at least 8 people, eating their livers. It targeted lonely people without any social ties, and without any witnesses' reports. Hunters couldn't track it down. Damn. And then Red Rock Nightmare, discovered in USA in 1999. Women. This fox lived among Native Americans on a reservation, feasting on their hearts at night. Its husband grew suspicious over time, and though 3 people were injured in the process, the fox was killed eventually. The Tale of a Fox Spirit. The creatures are obviously born from foxes. Their future isn't certain, however, and only the most cunning among them eventually ascend and turn into 9-tailed foxes. There is still a lot of controversy surrounding their actual classification. Some scholars argue that not just foxes but all other canids can potentially transform, wolves and dogs included. As of yet, however, there is no proof of this. Other scholars say that beings of the Vulpes genus is an essential prerequisite. According to their logic, island foxes or grey foxes belonging to the genus Urucaean cannot become fox spirits for this reason. And it is true that no such case has been reported yet, giving weight to the argument. It is safe to say that the genetic requirements are still a mystery. One demonologist in particular says Mammon decides which to transform, and supposedly grants the creatures great power based on his personal tastes, something that would explain the somewhat random nature of their transformations. The foxes that are granted their devilish powers usually enjoy them at first, but gradually start to despise their fate of eternal evil and in turn try to become free, unshackled humans. However, the majority of so-called facts about how fox spirits can become human were actually spread by the devil to see them suffer. The reality is that most fox spirits die in the pursuit of becoming human, hunted by those they wish to live among while chasing a future promised to them by the devil that does not actually exist. Crawl! History of Succubus. Depending on who you ask, the origin of the term succubus can vary greatly. One possible origin is the Latin word succuba, which means something like mistress or prostitute, a lustful being that can drive men insane. According to the theologian Thomas Aquinas, the devil would turn into a woman to collect male semen, then turn back into a man to spread it. Today, many demonologists agree this was an excuse to justify some men's pervasive sex drive. It would have been easier for a noble priest to claim that a succubus manipulated him after an affair or an unwanted pregnancy. Today's scholars on the topic agree that a succubus is able to invade a person's dreams in order to manipulate them. It is well known that such dreams are usually sexual in nature, though any type of dream that can bring about a person's suppressed emotions and desires can work. By that definition, a succubus is not just a creature of lustful temptation, but also one of negativity and depravity. Succubi around the world. This monster is known all over the world, often also categorized as night alp. Some people say great care needs to be taken when differentiating between the terms. It would be a great mistake to label all creatures who invade dreams under the same umbrella term. The following is a list of some of the most famous examples from all over the world, all categorized as Succubus for ease of reading. One-armed Willie, discovered in 1777 in Guerrero, Mexico. An exceptionally beautiful woman on the outside, known for having mesmerized dozens of men into servitude. Its true appearance was that of a one-armed dwarf with scars all over its body, and it was shot dead immediately upon discovery of its true identity. And this one is who we refer to as Nari, 9 o'clock guest. It was discovered in 1877 in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, England. That's where I live, England. Though all experts agree on this one being real, there was never hard proof that could lead to capture. But that does not mean that this particular succubus lived an innocent life. It is an ancient evil that has been around for centuries, repeatedly described in succubus literature. And the girl with broken wings, discovered in 1999 in Taiman, Russia. In stark contrast to the somewhat romantic nature, this succubus was particularly brutal, making people dream about being eaten alive by bugs. It was eventually discovered and executed promptly. Succubi terminology disputes. Generally, it can be said most common demons follow a greater demon lord, for examples Lycans that follow Aniarch, and most ghostly apparitions follow Satanachia. Since all monsters have different tendencies, however, who they serve is never something that is set in stone. Succubi are especially hard to label. The conscious is that all of them want to lead humans down a bad path, but their inherent motives and individual reasons for doing so remain unclear. Modern demonologists argue that the old traits attributed to Succubi are wrong, and rather be split up into groups depending on which demon lord they serve. But this leads to yet another problem. One-armed Willie as well as Black Silk both seduced their victims in their dreams and preyed on sexual urges, yet served two different lords. What is there to learn if two creatures serving a different demon lord employ the exact same methods? The debate still rages on, and scholars have yet to find a proper solution. For the time being, all monsters invading the dreamscape will continue to be collectively called Succubi. Yikes. History of Chinese undead, not just any undead, Chinese undead. Undead, also Jianshe, are famous creatures from China, known throughout Korea mostly through various movies and games. Difficult to categorize, and definitely not vampires. The literal translation of the original creature would mean something like hardened limbs, clearly implying a dead body. According to a Chinese divine concept, there is the type of magic that can keep a dead person moving for a small amount of time. This means the origin of this creature comes from a magic method meant to guide the dead. Should the soul of the person not find peace, they will escape from death, only to roam the earth in a state of rot, with bodies neither fully dying nor actually alive. Dead bodies being stiff is where the common image of these undead hopping around with extended arms comes from. Seeing them move around with stiff, rotting limbs is an unsettling sight, with their bodies often in contorted positions, originally meant for transport. A select few among them managed to ascend and gain more strength than they ever had as living humans, becoming subordinates to great demon lords. Undead around the world. And rigor mortis is our friend Rin. Through Chinese in origin, demonologists agree that the term refers to all bodies that have been brought back from the dead. Also, It is no secret that ancient Chinese magic has spread all over the world over the centuries, making these creatures more than just a local myth. What follows are some examples of the most powerful undead discovered. Hopping Hag, discovered in Shuhou in China at 14 something. I read that entirely wrong. A creature that, despite looking like an old woman, could easily tear a man in half. Soldiers were dispatched and managed to kill it, though its body still wriggled around for days, even with its limbs cut off. Magic for you. Rigor Mortis, discovered in 1619 something in Osaka, Japan. Characteristics are its exceptional magic skills as well as an appearance almost indistinguishable from humans. Officially, there are no records of it having harmed anyone personally, but there are many documented cases of people having died in mysterious accidents around it. And then, Muddy Blondie, discovered in Cotswolds, England in 1990 something. Penny Layden was a famous hair model that rose from the grave and terrorized the surrounding area. The long, beautiful hair on a rotten, decaying body made her appearance certified nightmare fuel. It took 2 days before she was shot to death. Real death, that is. And she left dozens of victims. It is one of the most horrible documented massacres committed by a monster. The power of undead magic. Something trying to move while the whole body is stiff makes for a grotesque image. To many people, an apt comparison would be the Western equivalent of a zombie. However, the Chinese creatures are not mindless hulls that aimlessly shuffle about. Far from it. Their magic turns into a very different, much more dangerous kind of threat. Surprisingly, a lot of them are even able to fly, or at least float. Weird. There have been reports of flying undead laying waste to villages in both Korean and Chinese provinces. Another magic trick of theirs is to assume the role of a living person. According to the old Chinese records, a man named Jian Gui was possessed by a young beauty and slept with her, yet another next to a rotten corpse. They can possibly possess many other abilities, with documented instances of them having caused droughts, transforming into great beasts, and even spitting fire. It should be obvious that these are far more than just reanimated corpses, but instead beings with fearsome abilities who, in modern times, often hide walking among the living. Satanism Mag, Hell's Religions and Languages. The religions and languages of Hell. Those scholars are actively researching Hell. Definite answers are hard to find. Naturally, it is hard to conduct research there in person for obvious reasons. That is why demonologists have shifted towards the analysis of the languages of Hell instead. Any place with multiple religions, will have multiple languages as well. Hell is divided into 4 regions. The ancient outskirts with Origo as the main city, Rushhards, Samont, and Derma. Since demonologists can't go to Hell themselves to fact-check, they have to meticulously scour old demonic records for new details, then piece everything together. It is important to note that this way of research agreed upon by all demonologists collectively means that everything is really just a speculation. What follows is a small introduction to Hell's regions and languages. It provides interesting insight to new readers, while at the same time serving as a handy guide for scholars looking upon information. Written by Pyoso Kim, demon linguist. About ancient demon tongue. I might have said religions rather than regions. About ancient demon tongue. This is the language spoken in the ancient outskirts of Hell. It's commonly referred to as either demon tongue or simply demon language. Similar at first sight to the Korean Hangul Gwal, scholars discovered that there are no similarities in reading or writing, and that the language has no concept of consonant vowels. There were a lot of discussions, and only recently it became clear that it follows a vertical format. Because of a seemingly lack of letters, however, a lot of researchers still disagree. Many scholars of ancient Chinese say they do not see any shared characteristics between ancient demon tongue and any human language. It turned out that a lot of mistakes stemmed from the fact that certain letters look nearly identical, which made the language look like it had a lot less depth than there was actually the case. At first believed to only have 54 characters, experts have already discovered 1030 now, with more possibly waiting to be discovered, written by Phil Kim, demon linguist. About Samont. One of Hell's local languages is called Samont. Sometimes it is referred to as the Samotarian dialect. It is special in that while single letters can be read phonetically, they radically change in meaning, sound and pronunciation when combined, resulting in sounds unknown to humans. These complexities have made advancements in interpreting a daunting slow process, but due to new insight and material to work with, lots of progress have been made over the years. One of the biggest contributors to deciphering Samont was Vietnamese language analyst and demonologist Pham Hon, both the same person. Pham Hon managed to discover a basic interpretation formula for Samont. He died in an accident shortly after its publication. Damn. I won't dive into conspiracy theories around Pham Hon's death here. What I will say is that he was one of the most talented demon linguists, and that his genius system allows almost perfect interpretation of Samont. Material in Samont is hard to find, meaning there isn't a lot of data to work with. That's because over time the demons have started to act more secretive. We are only one short step away from truly mastering this language. It's only a question of time at this point. Written by Phil Kim, demon linguist. About Dermes. Derma is another one of the regions of hell. Its local language is most commonly referred to as Dermes. The common conscience is that Dermes is the simplest of hell's languages. Its letters do not exceed either 1 dot or 3 lines, and the simple the nature of the language makes it easy to differentiate consonants and vowels. Though straightforward and concise, Dermes hasn't been interpreted until recently, since material written in it was always extremely rare and in high demand by collectors. Dermes, as we currently know it, has been fully deciphered and can be freely read by demon linguists. However, reading a Dermes text requires extreme courage. Monsters speaking Dermes are infamous for their atrocious brutality, and reading Dermes phrases can leave horrible mental scars and cause trauma. Dermes is also used by demon linguists when exchanging information is secret. Nobody except for them can recognize the language and make sense of it. Written by Phil Kim, demon linguist. About the language of Rust-Hatos. Another one of the regions of hell is called Rust-Hatos. Its local language is commonly referred to as Rust-Heart. This language actually treats an empty space as a single letter. It was impossible to decipher because that fact became known. For example, GA, depending on how many empty spaces follow, can be pronounced as either ga or ga. This strange trait of the language made many think that letters had been lost, which led to research on it being deemed impossible for a long time. This system of empty spaces came to light during the Novena Diabolos ritual in 16-something, so it was done before then. During this ritual, a satanic bishop who spoke Rust-Heart became terminally ill and decided to leave notes on how to interpret the language. He had intended for these notes to only be passed down to other bishops, but actually some of them realized how much value this info possessed and sold it to demon linguists. This language, still not fully deciphered, became the first known language of hell among scholars. Written by Phil Kim, demon linguist. Hell's outskirts, Origo. Many records of hell nowadays stem from the same source, the devil worshipper and scholar Alonso Brusca, who kept meticulous notes of his findings. Alonso had many talks with Mephistopheles, who was interested in humans and provided valuable information about hell itself. This is but a short excerpt. Alonso: so please tell me, is it true you reside in the capital of hell? Mephisto: yes. Although my hometown lies in hell's outskirts, Origo. That is its name. Alonso: humans think of hell as a place of only suffering and misery, yet there must be so many more places that we know nothing about. Mephisto: it does not matter if you release a fish out into the dry desert or into a lush field, both are equally painful. Does hell interest you humans so much that you want to carry on this conversation? According to these writings, Origo is located in the old outskirts of hell. Of course, this info requires one to 100% trust Alonso's words. One thing is for sure, this information won't be of much help to humans headed to hell. For hell, as Mephisto said, it is no place for us either way, and only pain awaits. Written by H5DEV Demonologist. Hell's capital, Rusthatos. Many records of hell nowadays share the same source, the devil worshipper and scholar Alonso Brusca, who kept meticulous notes of his findings. One of the most interesting records references a place called Rusthatos. Alonso was taken prisoner by Lilith's servants and was taken to Rusthatos, where though various methods they tried to convert him, due to their drugs, he was able to see more than he could have ever imagined, temporarily able to descend deeper into hell itself, in a form neither physical or spiritual. Alonso's writings claim he ventured all the way to the realm of Asmodeus. Buildings were crumbling, surrounded by fire and the contorted bodies of humans crushed by the falling bricks. Shambling human shells with no arms banged their heads against a wall of infinite size on the only pristine building, begging to be let go. The laughter of demons echoed from deep within. At the heart of it all stood my great lord Asmodeus. As I tried approaching this beautiful scene, I could feel my mind turn blank, the effects of my elixir coming to an end. There is controversy regarding this record's authenticity. Some say that Alonso described the stereotypical image of hell at the time, and nothing more. Whatever the case, it is commonly accepted fact among scholars that Rusthatos is hell's capital. Hell's #1 tourist spot, Samont. Many records of hell nowadays share the same source, the devil worshipper and scholar Alonso Brusca, who kept meticulous notes of his findings. In this particular instance, he makes mention of something curious, a tourist spot in hell. Alonso recalls having returned from a place called Samont after one of his adventures into hell. This place, also the origin of a language of the same name, is a tourist destination where demons come to watch humans suffer. In this case, he had met an old man sentenced to eternal damnation for rape and murder. Having died, the old man awoke in hell, as deserved. This describes Samont as hell in the way we would commonly imagine it. Demons seem to enjoy watching the suffering, joyously taking in awe the gruesome sight. Whether true or false, scholars nowadays believe Samont is a part of hell where humans are condemned to eternal suffering. Written by H5DEV, Demonologist. Mephisto and the Sin of Sloth. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons representing the 7 sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories. so as to educate our esteemed readers. It is said that Mephisto came to represent the sin of sloth in the late 19th century. It is yet to be studied how this change came about, though records show demons do not usually get along well, which could mean a confrontation of sorts took place. In Catholic teachings, sloth is tied to not working, and a habitation disinclusion to exertion, mankind's biggest fault, as inactivity invites sin. It is among the most common sins, and one which taints the soul in a way perfectly fits for demons. Mephisto's 40 can essentially be described as deception. Derek Allen's warning to us all is that when Mephisto on the throne of sloth, humans may be deceived into justifying their sinful laziness. We are growing lazier and more comfortable by the day, taking it for granted. We forget others, instead focus only on how we can do even less, losing sight of the things that actually matter. That's today's society, actually. This is Mephisto's great deception, one that will lead us to sinful ruin. Written by reporter Giiku Games. Mammon and the Sin of Greed. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons represent the 7 sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. Mr. Allen's research shows that Mammon is the only ruler of sin to retain his original position. Whether Mammon enjoys this position is another question entirely, but his ability to maintain it indefinitely speaks volumes about his power. In Catholic terms, greed means always wanting more, never sharing. Those affected are scared of others, while at the same time looking down on them. To satisfy their greed, humans will regard others as nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. Rin? Derek insists that things have largely remained the same over the ages, with Mammon's strict rule always felt. We often tell ourselves that our morality as humans is superior from how it used to be, but the truth is that the world is becoming a harsher place every day, and we keep demanding more of life. It is easy to lie to ourselves and trample on our past in order to justify this never-ending greed. Written by reporter Giiku Games. Nibiros and the Sin of Envy. Let's see now. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons representing the 7 sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. It is said that Nibiros took the throne of envy in the 18th century. There are many theories how Nibiros came to have this position, and since demons don't tend to get along too well, it is possible that this spot was taken by force. Catholic teachings define envy as being envious of others to the point of hurting them. Envy leads to the slow but inevitable destruction of oneself, as well as those on the receiving end. According to Derek Allen, this means focusing too much on others. Nibiros, who originally lived under Satan's watch, sat in the throne of jealousy, and humans slowly became fascinated by voyeuristic jealousy and wanting that which others already had. In today's society, such behaviour is made easier than ever before because of social media. Ask yourself how often you see strangers' pics and think how awesome their life must be. If you want what someone else has, and even become willing to harm them, this is clearly because of Nibiros' influence. Do not become absorbed with what others do and what they have, and take a good look at your own life instead. You may find beauty in your own life that you were blind to all this time. Really? That's it? There's no author name? Arich and the Sin of Gluttony. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons representing the 7 sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. Many claim that Ariok took Gluttony's throne by force, or by eating the previous throne. Others doubt that Ariok would have had enough power to drive away Beelzebub. That's why Derek Allen suggests that Beelzebub may have relinquished the position willingly. In Catholic teachings, gluttony is the sin of gorging oneself on food. Food was a rare luxury in the Middle Ages, so eating more than needed and not shown was frowned upon in society. In other words, gluttony means you are inconsiderate towards the situation of others and only focus on yourself. According to Derek Allen, Ariok's nature is vengeful. Since Ariok took Gluttony's throne, self-centered behavior and revenge became widespread. It is shocking that we are willing to upset social order and leave morality behind just to spite someone else and belittle them. Today, food isn't as precious as it used to be. Therefore, gluttony should be seen as the act of trying to monopolize what is essential to live in the world rather than a literal gluttony. And it is sinful to keep others from living good lives for personal gain. Written by reporter Giiku Games. And I believe this one is also written by the same author, although it was not put into place because of a lack of room left. Satan Cheer and the Sin of Lust. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons representing the seven sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. Described by a very powerful demon, Satanic is also known as Baphomet. It's so strong that Mr. Allen suggests it is likely that Satanic took the throne of lust from Asmodeus. In Catholic teachings, lust is the sin of being driven by and given into sexual desires. Those that descend into sexual depravity often stoop to despicable lows, such as rape and molestation. Whatever that word is, it's disgusting either way, causing great harm to others. Lots of physical and psychological harm. According to Mr. Allen, Satanism Mag is a very lewd demon said to be targeting humanity's weakness, lust for ages already. Mr. Allen warned us that because of its sinful influence, more people end up unable to control their perverted sexual desires. Today, it is safe to say our society is more civilized than in the past. However, a suppression of such powerful instincts can easily lead one to succumb to the foul demon's temptation. Satanic Chian, whatever that word is, makes sure to always keep those sinful urges in our mind. It is up to us to remind ourselves that we need to keep our hearts and minds clean. Written by reporter Giiku Games. What a horrifying sin, to say the least. Demogorgon and the Sin of Wrath. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons representing the seven sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. Originally governed by Satan, wrath was passed to a demon named Berith, who soon rebelled. However, Berith was slain by Satan, and the throne of wrath was passed on again, this time to Demogorgon. In Catholic teachings, wrath is the inability to control and contain one's anger, causing harm to those around a person. The sin is one of the most vicious, responsible for many terrible massacres throughout history. According to Derek Allen, Demogorgon is wild and temperamental, unlike Satan, who is more dignified and calm. He tried to solidify his position through pure brute force, and many were affected by his hot-headed, violent actions. Just think of how many people these days casually talk about going to anger management. Some people even justify their aggressive behavior, saying that giving in would be a sign of weakness. This shows that a lot of people in modern society still embrace their anger instead of trying to distance themselves from it. Anger is meant to be controlled and contained, not to be carried outward. Those who claim it is simply part of their nature have already fallen victim to the Demogorgon's wicked influence. written by reporter Jin-Ho Lee. Rimmon and the Sin of Pride. Derek Allen, 21st century demonologist, published an interesting theory in which he claims that the demons represented by 7 sins can change. This magazine will publish Mr. Allen's various theories so as to educate our esteemed readers. It is unclear when exactly Rimmon took over the throne of sin. Some say Lucifer sat there before, but that raises even more questions, since some demonologists are still divided on whether Lucifer and Satan are the same entity. Derek Allen seems convinced that the throne was left vacant by Lucifer. Pride in Catholic teachings is the sin of suppressing others through excessive faith in oneself. Easily confused with confidence at first glance, pride is an unhealthy obsession and a constant feeling of superiority over others. In the Bible, Rimmon is described as the bringer of abundance, worshipped by the king of Aram Damascus, prayed to as a benevolent idol, yet also described as a demon in teachings. Mr. Allen warns us that Rimmon may wear a mask of trickery, enticing humans to act in ways that do more harm than good without noticing. Nowadays, we've seen more than ever before and possess a lot of knowledge. People strive for high levels of education, and the internet serves information on a silver platter. In order to not succumb to pride and look down on others, we need to remain humble no matter what. Written by reporter Jin-Ho Lee. About monster types. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters. As editors, we can't just write for those already in the know, but the uninitiated as well. So today we go over some of the basics of Occult Monster 101. If you're new to this is for you. Pay close attention. We can put monsters into various categories, and though they are not human, some human characteristics apply. Demonologists can come up with 6 categories that can help better understand them. Fear, manipulation, grief, plague, revenge, and parasitism, often linked closely to the great devil, and thus the sin they serve. As an example, Mammon is the ruler of greed. Makes sense, right? Mammon's servants usually show signs of the fear type of manipulation, because he is the lord of greed. Those serving Neberas, the lord of envy, tends to show signs of grief and revenge. Pretty basic, isn't it? It's not rocket science, but those who are uninitiated wouldn't know where to start. As a loyal reader, you'll always know what's what. That's a promise! Maxine editorial. About monsters' fear. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters, right? Since we've received a lot of questions on the topic, let's take a closer look. Let's talk about the attribute fear. Oh, the horror. This monster type is actually quite common. Wouldn't any monster fill you with fear upon seeing it? The fact is what makes this type particularly common. Among the most famous monsters of this type are werewolves, who are always of this type as they have no other choice due to folkloric preconceptions. It is said humans who see a monster of this type tremble with crippling fear and become unable to sleep for days, until they face a gruesome end. Many of them choose to end their lives themselves. Can you imagine a horror so great that you'd rather die? If you've been suffering from nightmares for days on end, watch out, for you may be a target already. Maxine editorial. About monsters' manipulation. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters, right? Since we've received lots of questions on the topic, let's take a closer look. Today is all about manipulation, also called deception. You want to know about the attributes of monsters who employ this trick. The first sign is extreme display of confidence. The classic tale of a handsome man or woman using their looks and confidence to manipulate others has been done to death, yet never gets old, does it? Maybe deep down we actually want to be seduced by a beast and simply follow our darkest desires. If you had to think of a mascot and prime example for this type, it would no doubt be the lust-filled, manipulative succubus. Remember that even they are all individual, and some prefer causing nightmares instead of erotic dreams. Another example known to never be of another type will be the well-known siren. Their demonic songs are known to lead humans straight into ruin. I guess the thought of finding true love out in the open sea is simply one too good to be true, right, my sailors? If you suddenly find yourself love out there, think twice. Those butterflies in your stomach might be bats after all. Maxine editorial. About monsters' grief. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters, right? Since we received a lot of questions on the topic, let's take a closer look. Grief, sadness, sorrow. Prepare to feel depressed. I'm sure all of you are familiar with sadness. You know the deal. Salty stuff coming out of your eyes and all that. A loved one dies, a friend is lost, a country suffers a terrible tragedy. But what if that state of grief suddenly keeps lingering? You eat your favourite food, meet people you love, but for some reason you can't shake the feeling. Demons of grief, no doubt, in some twisted sense. They are the worst of all types. One of the most globally known creatures of this type is the Lamia. After all, few emotions, if any, are as heartbreaking as losing one's child. Agree? Please beware for those who are depressed. After all, you can never be sure if it's a natural state, or the foul work of a monster. I was going to say foul monster at work, but that also makes sense. Maxine editorial. About monsters' parasitism. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters, right? Since we received a lot of questions on the topic, let's take a closer look. Parasitism, worms, bugs, nasty creeper crawlies. Yuck. I think it's safe to say we will hate them. My apologies to the terrarium owners out there. All two of you? Wow. A gentle stab there, but seriously, those creatures all look so nasty, right? These creatures can inject poison, spread disease, and gnaw away your flesh unnoticed. It's a monster type with lots of variety, and you don't want to meet any of them. Their disgusting appearance is just the cherry on top. Humans under their influences reportedly see worms crawling out of every orifice. These hallucinations can turn into a sick reality, causing swelling and festering wounds. Puke bucket material? No? A perfect example for a monster of this parasitic type is whatever that is. Sounds unfamiliar to our readers? It's an old spider demon from Japanese folklore, and a perfect representative of this monster type. If you're scared of these nasty little critters, you're on the safe side. You never know if the next little bite could lead to a big tragedy. Maxine editorial. About monsters. Plague. Avid readers of our magazine will already know there are various types of monsters, right? Since we received a lot of questions on the topic, let's take a closer look. Today's category is plague, also blight and epidemic, and pandemic. These are rare monsters who are extremely powerful and fear-inducing. Naturally, every plague throughout mankind's history was terrible enough to be recorded in books, right? And if there were more monsters of this kind, surely we would no longer even exist. That is because monsters that fall into this category are always waiting for the perfect opportunity. Every time mankind is weak and medicine supply is scarce, they strike. That's why war and plague go hand in hand. It's because of the creature behind it. There's a really famous example of this monster type. Whatever that is. Young readers may not have heard it. A mysterious man bouncing around on one foot, carrying bottles and misbehaving. They bring ruin and plague wherever they go. Watch who you trust, and who knows how it could all end. Maxine editorial. Ritual info altars. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you wouldn't be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine has prepared a special listing, multiple months of all things ritualistic. This piece here is all about altars. No summoning is possible without the right location and a matching altar. 3 essential form the basics that are required: the right materials, the offering, and the summoner. The altar is connected to the demonic realm through a conduit. You've seen summoning circles in nearly every movie with supernatural themes, right? That's pretty much real deal here. There needs to be an offering to the monster. The role of the summoners is self-explanatory. These 3 essentials are what's required for a ritual. But don't rush into it just yet. These are just the basics. Maxine Editor Yonhee Choi. Ritual info. Doll offerings. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you wouldn't be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine's prepared a special listing lasting multiple months of all things ritualistic. This piece here is all about doll offerings. Every monster demands a sacrifice. At first thoughts upon hearing that are of bloody goats and chicken heads, but in this case it's less bloody, and not necessarily a gift, but an object used to bind the monster to the place where it was summoned. A contradictory anchor of sorts. Or a contractual anchor. This offering has to fit unique specifications depending on the monster. For example, what could a siren want? The bloody heart of a man? A pretty she-shell? No, try again. What we actually need is a straw doll, even if it sounds strange at first. One may think the doll is used as a replacement for the human body, but it's actually because a monster needs something to hold on to. That means the real thing is luckily not needed. It just so happens sirens prefer a straw doll. It is said monsters summoned this way usually stick around for about half an hour. Think you've got the social skills to talk to a demonic creature without striking a fatal death by accident? Maxine Editor Yonhee Choi. Ritual info. Animal sacrifice. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you want to be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine has prepared a special lasting multiple months of all things ritualistic. This piece here is all about animal sacrifice. As some of you may already be aware of, every ritual needs an offering. It serves not as a present for the demon being summoned, but rather as an anchor to the ritual site. Each offering must correctly be placed depending on the ritual performed. Just like some rituals require dolls as offerings, others require a fresh animal carcass. You may think an animal is sacrificing a human steed, but it's actually used differently. The monster needs something that a soul can hold on to when it's summoned. Animals don't have souls, do they? This means the monster has some sort of anchor it can hold onto after being summoned. The exact size behind it remains unclear. It is said monsters summoned this way usually stay about half an hour. Think you got the social skills to talk to a demonic creature without striking a fatal deal by accident? Maxine Editor Yonhee Choi. Ritual info. Summoning 1. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you wouldn't be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine is running a special feature for the next few months, all about things ritualistic. This piece here is all about the summoning process itself, and summoning circles. Summoning monsters is a difficult undertaking, so this will require multiple articles. In this one, I would like to touch on the concept of accepting a summon. Summoning circles are like stamps on a letter in a way. We like to think of them as circles where something just pops out of, but the concept is a lot more complicated than that, naturally. It is actually easy to work with a summoner drawing the circle. Let's take a werewolf as an example. If you're lucky, even though not suitable, a summoning circle of Mephisto will do the trick. After all, a stamp's a stamp, no matter what it's on, right? That should put your mind at ease. Trust us when we say that you'll know if your letter has been accepted. A monster's response is one you'll definitely notice. Don't fool yourself into thinking they'll blindly accept. There's a lot more to this, so look forward to our next issue. Maxine Editor Yan He Chai. Ritual Info Summoning 2. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you wouldn't be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine is running a special feature for the next few months all about things ritualistic. This piece here is all about the summoning process itself and summoning circles. Summoning monsters is a difficult undertaking, so this will require multiple articles. In this one, I would like to touch on the concept of rejecting a summon. Previously, I compared the circle to a stamped letter, which makes it sound simple. Be aware that not every monster is 100% willing to accept this letter. Needless to say, some summoning circles may get harshly rejected by certain monsters. It is still unclear what exactly causes a rejection. Some blame it on a monster's instinct. Some say monsters reject a specific sort of symbolism. If it's not one they agree with, we can say for sure there's always at least one circle that never works. One known example would be to never use Nibiru's when summoning a werewolf. Not only will the ritual fail, but you will risk having a pissed off werewolf lunging at your throat later on. They remember and have means of finding whoever disturbed them. If your ritual fails and no demon summons, that means that it's been rejected. Make sure to send us your most awkward summoning fails. Oh dear, it's going to be like a monthly feature where people are going to be putting in like their summoning fails, sort of like that. Like in a montage video for YouTube or something like that. Maxine Editor Yan He Chai. Ritual Info Summoning 3. Anything goes. Summoning a monster must be awe-inspiring, right? I doubt you've ever pulled it off. If you did, you wouldn't be reading this right now, eh? Our magazine is running a special feature regarding all things ritualistic. This piece here is all about the summoning process itself, and summoning circles. Summoning monsters is a difficult undertaking, and this article concludes the 3-month special. In this one, I would like to touch on the concept of summons that always work. I previously explained the importance of making sure the summoning circle is sent the right way. Just as there are monsters who will refuse a summoning circle no matter what, there are those that don't care and will accept anything. We'll use a Cyclops as an example. This one-eyed beast is famous for accepting any summon, and never having rejected one. This makes things a breeze, really. Any circle will do the trick in this case. However, dealing with the monsters can be quite a piece of work. Make sure not to carry anything with you that they don't like to avoid. Misunderstandings. They are not scared of what you carry at all, but they very well could be disgusted by it, like a demon equivalent of not having showered. I wonder why exorcists aren't complaining about their job conditions if it's so easy to summon a monster. This concludes our 3-month special on summoning rituals. If you've been subscribed to us all this time, you can say with confidence that you are an absolute expert on the subject now. Question mark? Maxine Editor Yan He Choi. Monster Names 1. Reader submission by Moon Hyun. Hello, fellow fans of the occult. How's life and death treating you? Each monster has its own name, though we like to simply call them, let's say, vampire or succubus. They have real names. It is said the great devils themselves give them their names. The problem lies in the meaning of their names. They're based on the very first impression. It is a simple method, though I guess it does make them easy to remember. Let me give you an example. The name of one of Mammon's vampires followers translates to Winter Cave Ragman. Mina! This vampire was once hunted and hid in a cave wearing nothing but rags, where it met its savior Mammon. It was the season of snow, and Mammon gave the vampire the name Winter Cave Ragman, but not before cutting its already torn clothes and skin even further. After all, Mammon wanted his new servant's look to match the name he had chosen. How about another example? Mammon's work, again. Among the Succubus that follow Mammon, there is one named 9 o'clock guess. Nari! The deeper meaning of it? Well, the truth is simply happened to be 9 o'clock when Mammon encountered the Succubus. I know, right? Most monster names already give you a good hint about their nature. Their origin stories can range from shockingly simple to properly epic. Any readers out there discovered some worth sharing? Monster names 2. Curious monster names. Reader submission by Moon Hyun. Hello fellow fans of the occult. How's life and death treating you? Thanks to all the awesome feedback on my last submission, I've got some more names for you. Let's start with the werewolf Crossroad Color. Demon Lord Ariok was following him that day. At a crossroads, the young werewolf pup sensed Ariok following him. He assumed it was a playful game. The werewolf rushed Ariok, who without any effort split him apart into 2 halves. Blood was gushing all over the road, and Ariok couldn't help but laugh at the gruesome sight. Ariok clapped his hands, laughing, exclaiming, "I've got a name for you." With a smile, he resurrected the werewolf into servitude, naming it Crossroad Color. Then there are the bizarre origins of the Succubus One-Armed Willie. The Satan chick felt like employing a succubus into servitude that day. Satan chick roamed the world looking for a succubus and encountered an ugly succubus dwarf. Satanic chick kicked the wolf around and cut off one of its arms before giving it its humiliating, degrading name. Satanic chick found great employment in seeing it suffer. "Your name suits your looks," Satanic chick said with a chuckle. "You never know what goes on inside a demon's head. They are unpredictable. There are many more stories, and I'll make sure to submit more in the future. Maybe you'll discover some interesting ones yourself." Monster names too, and that wraps up the village logs for now. Vampire Records 1. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to the cruel vampire named Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. There are excerpts of his notes, and it is up to you whether you choose to believe them or not. Month X, day X, so no confirmed date. It has been 23 days since this hunt started. John is still suffering from a high fever. He has been like this ever since his vision. Rumor has it that vampires can invade a person's psyche without the need to physically appear. John keeps muttering to himself about having to escape. It appears his mind is ravaged by confusion. He even had a seizure, shouted about having to be set free, to a point where he had to be tied down. He was rambling incoherent blasphemy, with his eyes rolled in the back of his head. We thought about giving up, but our sorceress Jane advised us against turning back now. Jane said that the fact John's symptoms are getting worse means the vampire is getting closer. Turning back now, his chance of survival are slim at best. It would be smarter to find and kill a vile vampire to lift John's curse instead. We vowed to do so. I have to hurry for John's sake. Next page. And month X, day X. I awoke at dawn early to see John had gone. I swear we had tied him down securely. I chased after him, an endeavour that proved to be very difficult. The search lasted from dawn until evening and did not produce any results. This cursed hunt had already claimed 3 good people. Though it pains me, I assume John is dead by now. Before going to bed, I spoke to my fellow companions about this. We have been acting just as the beast expects, lead only to death. It is time to turn things around and become the predators instead. Fortunately, the others were very understanding. Starting tomorrow, I will work harder and up the pressure. Vampire Records 2. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to a cruel vampire nicknamed Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. There are excerpts of his notes, and it's up to you whether you choose to believe them or not. We need more information if we don't want to fall prey to this beast. We changed course early in the morning and headed for the ancient castle, his previous abode. Most things were lost to the tides of time, but I found old notes in the study. Most notes were unreadable, but we found clues about the vampire's language. The writing, however, remained a mystery, as no one of our party could decipher it. After leaving the castle, we shared a meal at the tavern in a nearby village. As fate would have it, I was approached by a stranger willing to share his knowledge on the notes we have found. The stranger said he came to this village to study vampires as well, and that the letter in our possession was written in an old demon language originating from the hell itself. An actual piece of demonic correspondence. Having given it a lot of thought, we chose to buy a book on the subject from him, for a hefty price I might add. I counted our remaining funds back at our accommodation. Our financial means are running low. Before this hunt abruptly ending frights me. Looking at my wife's picture reminds me of why I'm doing this. My resolve shall never falter. Month X Day X. We set out early in the morning. During a carriage ride, Jane took a look at the book we had acquired. She explained that there was a certain way to summon vampires. All of us broke out in laughter. Pray tell, who's foolish enough to dare summon such evil? Do these pitiful B-words expect to be granted a wish? The carriage reached its destination just in time for lunch. Jane could sense the foul vampire's presence. We set up a camp nearby. Peter came up with a great idea while eating. His idea was to summon the vampire directly. If we were adequately prepared and could lure him to us, he would stand no chance against our ambush. Though the plan sounded mad at first, it is beginning to sound enticing. I will have a proper discussion with the others about it tomorrow. Vampire Records 3. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to the cruel vampire nicknamed Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. There are excerpts of his notes, and it is up to you whether you choose to believe them or not. Month X Day X. In the early morning of hours, we talked about our plan to summon and attack the vampire. Jane managed to sense his location, so we set out in that direction. At sunset, we found an old abandoned church. Tales tell of the fact that vampires could not enter these sacred halls, so we camped there and decided to get some good rest. We are close. I have to save my strength. Month X Day X. How naive to assume this place was safe. The vampire swooped in a while before dawn. He attacked Peter who was on lookout duty, and then he tore his arm clean off. When we woke up, we fended him off with crossbows and he hid in the darkness. Jane drew a magic barrier while we aided Peter and wasted silver bolts in the process. With Jane's holy barrier finished, he was unable to get any closer to us. We held out until sunrise. Peter is lucky not to have lost his life. We discussed what our next steps should be. Carl said that he'd take Peter to a surgeon, but that would cost us precious manpower. But we could not stop now that the foul beast was within reach. If I miss this chance, I may have to wait another decade. Gosh. Carl got furious. He asked me if revenge was really more important than Peter's life. He said I was blinded by revenge, losing sight of all those that sacrificed their lives along the way. Jane also suggested a change of plan, but I objected. I tried to explain to the others more people would die if we stop and retreat now. Luckily, Peter agreed with me. He told me he'd stay with me until the end, even if it meant losing his arm. Peter had originally chosen to come along to avenge his daughter. After Peter's words, neither Carol or Jane spoke up again. It fills me with relief that I'll see the end of this journey alongside them. Fret not, my beloved wife. You shall yet be avenged. Vampire Records 4. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to a cruel vampire nicknamed Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. There are excerpts of his notes, and it's up to you whether you choose to believe them or not. Our hunting party of once 7 has already been reduced to 4. Jane is too weak to participate in battle, and Peter has lost his arm, which realistically only leaves Carol and me. Jane insists on performing the summoning before it's too late. Our plan is to summon the vampire and cut him down before he can react. We see no other way, so we collectively agreed. Come sunset, we shall see this through. Peter agreed to pose as a frail patient, acting out of desperation. Given his current state, the role cruelly suits him. Peter laughed and told us not to worry. It was hard for us to ignore the suffering behind his smile. According to Jane's interpretation of the notes, we weave together clothes and threads for the summoning. They supposedly represent the connection of the two worlds. For some reason it did not work. Jane didn't know why this and tried everything she could think of. Peter voiced his concern about it, but Jane insisted that this was the only way to properly summon the vampire. In the end, nothing we tried worked. Jane went over every detail again with great attention, but could only conclude that there was nothing we had missed. Drained, exhausted and frustrated, we did not talk to one another during dinner. What more do we need to do? Peter kept trying to do the ritual at night. Carl and I hid with our crossbows readied, but these efforts were once again in vain. We decided to get some sleep at last. It seems this hellish journey is far from over yet. I do not know if it's because of a failed summoning, but Peter seems weak. I feel sorry for him, but we will have to try again tomorrow. Only once we slay this creature can my wife find peace. Vampire Records 5. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to a cruel vampire nicknamed Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. There are excerpts of his notes, and it is up to you whether you choose to believe him or not. Month X, Day X. Peter was gone when I woke up this morning. We searched frantically until midday, when we finally found his body. He was cruelly killed, his corpse displayed on the altar. This is the vampire's preferred way of killing. We are in his territory. Another good man lost to his foul shade. Jane broke down in tears holding Peter's body. Carol and me silently stood by, with our hearts broken. We recovered his lifeless body. I should have seen the signs. Peter was being possessed by the vampire. All this time I thought his pained moans at night were because of his arm. He endured the vampire's curse for so long before his mind finally broke. Neither of us were able to eat anything. It was not until sunset that I finally ate some dry bread, but I threw up shortly thereafter. I'm tired. I should probably rest. Oh my dear, beloved wife, please grant me strength. Carl was gone when I awoke this morning. He left a letter. In it, he wrote that he would abandon the hunt and return to his hometown. The journey had pushed him to his breaking point. I can never blame him for that. However, it angers me to have lost valuable manpower now that the target is within reach. Overwhelmed by emotions, I tore up the letter. Jane said she will stay and see it all through to the end. I know how strongly she feels about Peter's death. I checked our weapons with her this evening. There is only one way to end this now. Jane summons the vampire, and I pierce his rotten heart from behind. Failure means death. Another sunset, yet another summoning attempt failed. I feel like we're missing something crucially important. We have to start over from the beginning. We are running out of time. Vampire Records 6. This is a compilation of records made by a hunter who lost his wife to a cruel vampire nicknamed Winter Cave Ragman. This hunter's name was Brad. These are excerpts from his notes, and it is up to you whether you choose to believe him or not. 67 days have passed since we set out on this hunt. We found Carol today, who had said that he would return home. He's dead. This means everyone has fallen prey to the beast except for Jane and me. Recovering Carol's lifeless body, we both swore not to retreat and to avenge our comrades. I confronted Jane and decided we should rest for today. We will proceed once our minds are a little clearer. Jane and I slept for way too long. We must have been more exhausted than we thought. Though refreshed, the thought of having slept so well with that beast around me gives me goosebumps. We packed up and headed back towards the village. The mere thought of our hunt possibly ending on such a bitter note weighs heavily on me. During lunch, Jane shared one of her theories with me. So far, all of the dead we found have died in a similar place. Could this be more than just coincidence? Jane blamed herself for not noticing this pattern earlier. If there are spots this creature favours for hunting, could those same spots be adequate summoning locations? Maybe that's why we failed to summon her previously. Jane went through all her notes and got excited when she guessed another possible location. Things are looking promising. The location displayed several specific characteristics. As it happened, it shared those with the locations where we recovered the dead. It appears the victims were all lured to similar places before being butchered. We shall return the favour. Jane will summon the vampire to its hunting ground, where I shall strike him down right where he stands. Jane agreed to this plan. This was the point of no return. I skipped lunch and dinner in order to check my weapons. Jane slept the whole day. She must have been up all night. She now has to assume the role of summoner. Originally, we had planned for Peter to do so. May God rest his soul. Our plan is perfect. Tomorrow the hunter shall become the hunted. My dearest wife, I beg your patience. Once the abomination is slain, I can finally follow you. Vampire Record 7, which is the one which we get in the cave. Let's see. Brad's entry suddenly stopped just before the hunt's finale. For those readers curious about how it all ended, his mangled corpse was found alongside that of Jane. Because of the detailed records he had left behind, such parties were able to find the bodies of the other hunters as well. Brad's body and his belongings were brought to his son Rick, who reacted coldly. According to people close to the family, Brad had been so absorbed with the hunt that he neglected his children. An elderly woman from the village raised them instead. The whole story is a tragedy. Having read through Brad's records makes me sympathize with him. I can excuse his behavior to a degree. Back when his wife was still alive, he put his family above everything else, but when she was killed by the vampire, he felt the need to slay it, fearing that his children might otherwise meet the same cruel fate. In other words, Brad's fanaticism and devotion to killing vampires stemmed from a deep love for his family. Shunned by his son even after death, he was buried in a small, unsuspecting grave, with only a few villagers attending his funeral. The owner of the land, a man interested in vampires, actually had a monument built in Brad's name, but since no one cared for it, it quickly became decrepit. Only an old, dirty tombstone remains as proof that Brad once lived. And few people, even passionate vampire hunters, remember his name. I just hope this book offers some sort of comfort and solace for this poor man's soul. This is one I'm probably going to be most irked out by, the Succubus records. Succubus Summoning Diaries 1. December 5th, 1484. A guidebook to hunting witches called Hammer of Witches is published by Henrik Kramer. Wait, that's wrong. Huh? This says Hammer of Witches. Okay. We'll just go along with this. Said to have inspired countless witch hunters, the book describes methods of discovering witches, as well as methods of dealing with them, most involving inhumane torture. Also, this book was the first to offer a definition of the term succubus as we know it today. Though a great source of fear for some citizens, there were those fascinated by and drawn to the book. Among them, Federico da Montefleck, however you want to pronounce their name, whose story shall be told here. Driven by lust and his sexual desires, this nobleman vowed to summon the charming succubus to spend a night in her embrace. 1493, the beginning of Federico's research. He tasked one of his maids with investigating strange deaths in town, under a pretext of collecting information on a disease to aid the doctor he's friends with. However, his instructions grew increasingly bizarre. Federico explicitly wanted to hear stories of people who died in despair. The maid inquired that it was not natural for everyone to feel despair before death, but that wasn't what Federico meant. He only wanted to hear about those who died filled with madness, on the brink of insanity. Though unnerved by these strange instructions, the maid followed her master's orders. Furthermore, she was driven by the thought that she could potentially aid the master's doctor's friend with his work. Diligently conducting investigations, the maid was finally able to provide Federico with the kind of story he had been looking for about a month. The maid was still unaware of the truth then. All the deaths shared similarities commonly associated with the work of a succubus. The very same creature her master was intended on summoning. Succubus Records 2. Let's see. Succubus Summoning Diaries. December 5th. City of Spire. Countless witch hunts. Also this. Okay. The great source of fears. We share the story. Driven by lust and his sexual desires, there's no. Okay. Okay, so it's only the second page which is unique. Federico visited the estate of the person suspected to be a succubus victim himself. The deceased was a commoner named Lorenzo, whose widowed wife was taken by surprise to have a nobleman suddenly visited. Sensing the widow's nervousness, Federico threatened her until she confessed about her late husband's work. She told Federico her husband had started acting weird for a month ago. She assumed he was sick with an unknown disease. When he started talking about the devil repeatedly, she decided to stop inquiring for fear for being put through a witch trial. She also said that the day before his death, her husband ran away, and when she found him, he was performing a ritual with a strange sort of magic wand. Federico wanted to know more about this ritual, but the wife had already cleaned up the entire site where it had taken place. She kept saying she doesn't remember anything and to please keep it a secret, and ultimately Federico received nothing more than some strange writings on parchment. Next page. Federico then started researching the language on the parchment and found out that, oddly enough, it was an ancient language spoken by demons themselves. Its characteristics were an exact match with the previous information he had gathered on the succubus. Federico rejoiced with glee. He felt that he was one step closer to summoning his own erotic servant. Succubus Records 3. The closer Federico got to his ultimate goal, the more people started to notice a change in him. Among one of the first people to do so was the maid who had been in his employ for many years already. She began to grow increasingly worried about the change in Federico's attitude and kept a close eye on his erratic behavior. Winter 1494, by now Federico has noticed the maid's suspicious attitude towards him. She had grown scared, and it was hard for her to keep that fact hidden. Driven by paranoia, Federico decided to search the maid's room, where he found a paper with a strange drawing on it. Federico was shocked. It was a magic circle, known specifically to keep away the demon referred to as succubus. The maid had done this as a countermeasure, fully aware of Federico's plans. The maid's plan was foiled. Realizing he had been caught, Federico reported what he found in the maid's room. She was arrested and put on trial for being a witch. Wow. But you kept the paper, didn't you? The maid cried and pleaded that she was only trying to protect herself from the demon Federico intended to summon, but nobody would listen. After the rush trial, the maid was burned alive at the stake. Her anguished cries echoed across the town hall, while Federico stood nearby and watched in complete silence. You wretched human being. Succubus Records 4. Fearing discovering having gone so far as to have his maid killed, Federico decided to hurry things up, though his true motive remains somewhat unclear to this day. It is believed he wanted to summon the succubus to gain sexual appeal socially and to feed his perversion. His delusions grew increasingly grand over time. Most of his time was spent trying to decipher the summoning ritual. The further he delved into the subject matter, the more he found out about what he would have to do for the ritual to work and which sacrifices would have to be made. Federico's tunnel vision has caused him to ignore his own well-being. With his wealth deteriorating and no maid, his outlook on the future became bleaker by the day. He could feel strange symptoms plaguing him. He had devoted all his time to summoning the succubus, unaware that he could potentially be one of its victims. Exactly! From that moment on, Federico was always accompanied by demon hunters, and started carrying a blessed dagger, But nothing could stop him from investigating the succubus slowly but surely. Word of Federico's undertaking spread. Alberto Toscano, an influential Vatican member, had heard of Federico's plan and kept a watchful eye on him. Succubus Records Diaries 5. Federico was confident that he had discovered all the steps to summon a succubus. However, he sensed some sort of instability and was afraid to go through it. Because of this, Federico offered a vagabond beggar a lot of money if he did as Federico told him. Afterwards, Federico taught the beggar the process of the ritual. The beggar had no idea what he'd gotten himself into. The beggar initiated the rituals per Federico's instructions, who stood at a distance. In his mind, he already suspected that a cruel fate might await for the dagger. He would be brutally slain at the hands of the succubus. Such would seem to be the most likely fate of those foolish enough to attempt the summoning. But Frederico's prediction was wrong. He thought he had all the details right, but the succubus did not show up at all. Now he must have missed a crucial part of the puzzle. Anger rose within Frederico again. When the beggar asked for the promised coin, Frederico violently stomped him to death. The beggar died right in front of the altar he had set up, and Frederico fled the scene without cleaning anything up. The beggar's death caused great unrest in the area. Poor people died all the time, but finding their corpse in front of a ritualistic altar was far from normal. Alberto Toscano, still secretly observing, could sense Frederico's involvement and decided to investigate. Frederico could sense deep down that his downfall was fast approaching. Succubus Records 6. Having committed murder and already having failed once, Frederico is eager to try again. Soon. At this point, he had become truly desperate. Totally desperate. Even should he succeed now, he had done things that could never be undone. His maid had been burnt. He had murdered a man with his bare hands, and the summoning altar had been there for all to see in plain sight. Frederico's own doom drew nearer by the day. Then he suddenly felt compelled to try to remember why he had wanted to summon the succubus in the first place, but he couldn't. Frederico chuckled madly. It didn't matter now. He knew he had misinterpreted some detail of the ritual. It was no surprise that he had failed. He had gotten one of the most fundamental parts wrong. He found out where he went wrong, and that the succubus could only be summoned in a few select specific locations. He recalled the deaf commoner Lorenzo. Lorenzo had tried to summon the succubus and got close. Frederico was frustrated for not having realized this earlier. There was another important location that Frederico decided to rule out first. It was a place not quite as close, and also Lorenzo had deemed the first location to be more likely and suitable one. Having gathered all his research materials, Frederico packed his bags and set out. Right at that moment, he suddenly heard a large knock on his door. Peeking through the window, his skin turned pale. It was Alberto Toscano, who had been observing him all this time, accompanied by holy agents of the Vatican. Frederico hurriedly left his mansion through a secret back door. His life only had one single purpose now. Before his own demise, he would do everything to summon the succubus at long last. He knew nothing would change the outcome of his doomed fate, but he simply wants to prove to himself that his theories have been right all along. Frederico gritted his teeth. There was no right or wrong for him anymore. There was only one place he had to reach to, no matter what. Succubus Record 7. Needless to say, Frederico died. Alberto Toscano and his Vatican agents had given chase, and Frederico, having completed the ritual, was found in the same state as the other victims. The Vatican combed the area with extreme prejudice. Everyone who had ever been even the tiniest bit of contact with Frederico was captured and tortured, and dozens of women were burned as suspected succubi. This hell on earth had been created by Frederico's actions. Meanwhile, Alberto Toscano was saddened by the fact that Frederico had died so easily. He would have preferred a confession filled with fear and despair as a gift to his one true God. He left others feel his frustration while doing his job. Hundreds were made to give false confessions, and were executed because of his fanaticism. This terrible reign of tyranny lasted for over a year, until Alberto had made too many enemies and was stabbed to death in a back alley. Frederico's morbid curiosity and lust for perversion had caused nothing but pain and misery for so many, and that pain was not caused by a succubus, but by humans. Humans inadvertently manipulated by the will of a succubus. So the succubus was never summoned in the first place. So how did Nari come into play? How did she become intertwined with a succubus? Which records won? Let's see, in the author's words, while many people still remember the political power scandal that happened in South Korea, important South, few remember the fact that people were actually killed. This is the story of a witch's deed within the Blue House, a story now famous as an urban legend, as well as a true story of tragedy that I've experienced myself. In memory of my love, Ho Jin Sin and Hyun-Yan-ji forever remembered. When I was assigned a position in the Blue House, I was very surprised. Even with my parents crying tears of joy for me, I simply can't quite believe it was real. Everything seemed like a dream to me, tracking the witch. It was when I entered the Blue House I finally realized it was all real. I was intimidated by its grand halls, moved by its majestic appearance, but also scared because of the rumors making the rounds. I felt like a student again, nervously standing in front of a class for the first time. There were rumors that a mysterious mental illness befell many who were associated with the Blue House. Their world was in chaos, and their life thrust into disarray. Those affected were allegedly often sent away on assignments abroad. Their departments would not share information and treat them as misusing. Under the guise of sending someone on a confidential assignment, you could easily cover up someone's death. I soon stopped worrying about the conspiracy theory. I was simply too busy with work. At that time, I was lucky to have found a good friend in Ho Chi Shin. He worked in the same department as me and vice versa, always cracking jokes, helping me out with any issues I had. I was a new, nervous female hire, and he was always there to help me, always introducing me to people, and we soon became pretty inseparable. I confessed my love to him, feeling like a K-drama heroine. I did not want rumors to start circulating about the new hire already being in a relationship, and the fact that we kept it a secret only served to make us grow closer faster. But tragedy struck unannounced without warning. I could see something was wrong just by looking at his face. At first he just seemed a bit tired, but after a couple of days he started acting strangely. His appearance had me scared and worried. I recalled the unsettling rumors I had before starting my job at the Blue House. Hyun-Ji's behavior was eerily similar to that described in the rumors. The symptoms grew increasingly worse, and one day he kept writing the word witch on all his documents over and over again in a delirious state. That day, Hyun-Ji was forced to leave work early. 3 days later, we were informed that he was sent on an important job abroad. That rumor I heard. What if what I heard was actually the truth? I spent days waiting for Hyun-Ji, with worry eating away at my heart. A week later, Hyun-Ji was found here in Korea, dead. Witch Records 2, tracking the witch. Because of the strange nature of Hyun-Ji's death, a lot of gossip circulated in the Blue House the next few days. However, not a single word about the death of a Blue House employee was shared by the media. Only a short article saying that a man in his 30s was found dead. People kept talking about the Blue House curse, but not for long. Orders were given not to talk about Hyun-Ji's death, so as to not disrupt work atmosphere. Over time, Hyun-Ji's name was slowly forgotten even by his closest colleagues. In an ironic, cruel twist of fate, I was tasked with processing Hyun-Ji's documents. Nobody around here knew we had a couple. Before his death, Hyun-Ji had scribbled the word witch on most of his documents, so it would be my job to erase that. A simple task though. It tore me apart inside having to erase the last traces of my dead lover with my own hands. While reviewing his employee records, I noticed strange writing in some documents. I'd never seen something like that before. No keyboard could write such characters, so it had to be a picture file. According to Hyun-Ji's notes, this writing was in what he referred to as demon language. I found notes saying that only malevolent witches speaking this language, which meant having to be extremely cautious. I found something extraordinary. Without knowing its meaning, I secretly copied the writing on my USB stick. Wow. From that day on, I started going to the library after work every single day. I was curious to learn about the language, about the supposed witch, and if all these things had a tangible connection to Hyun-Ji's death. I even spent all my free time at home reading through whatever I could find. I managed to gather useful information. The language Hyun-Ji had been investigated was an old demon tongue of sorts. I was confused. How did Hyunjae stumble upon this, and why did he get involved? Witch Records Tracking the Witch 3. The month following Hyunjae's death, I spent every 3 minutes investigating, consulting with self-proclaimed occult experts, and browsing through bizarre online forums didn't help and only confused me more. With these experts told me simply sounded insane. Some even said the language was a blessing from God and started drooling while reading it. One expert told me it was written by someone who must have been possessed. Just when I was about to give up asking these frauds, I found someone who identified the writing as a language from hell. Her name was Hyunjae, an occult researcher who recognized the writing at first glance. She asked me a lot of questions. She was very direct in her approach, and asked me how I found this writing, and if anyone had died, which prompted me to tell her about Hyunjae's sudden death. She said there wasn't enough data. Instead, she asked me to inform her immediately should I come across anything else. Unable to get the answers I had hoped for, I put the investigation on hold. Then one day, our team was given a new task. It was to get rid of strange drawings that had never been seen before. They were scribbled on the walls, and according to the top brass, they had to be removed before anyone outside noticed. I instantly noticed something was off about these drawings and made a copy. Afterwards, I went to Hyunyan. Her face turned dark when I told her about the pattern. She said it's a symbol of great demonic power. She also said that must mean a powerful witch has made herself at home in the blue house. The pattern is one known to ward off witches, which is why she must have indirectly ordered for it to be removed. A few weeks back, I would have said this was crazy talk. However, her words made me remember the fact that Hyunjae has scribbled the word witch everywhere just before he died. He died. Both things make sense, okay? And there was something else I remembered. Hyunjae often left, saying he enjoyed going for walks around the blue house. What if he was the one who had put up all these patterns with anti-witch symbols? I left Hyunyan in a hurry, now more confused than ever. Did this witch really murder Hyunjae? Did he discover her and try to seal away her powers? Time could only tell. Witch Records 4, Tracking 4. A witch has infiltrated the blue house and killing anybody who discovers her, is what I've been told last week. I would have laughed at Hyunyan when she said that, had it not been for Hyunjae's death. Now this whole thing didn't sound like some silly ghost story anymore. After I realised what I was dealing with, I contacted her again. She was the only one able to help me find out what really happened to Hyunjae and the strange circumstances surrounding his death. She picked me up with her car after work. She drove to a quiet place and told me things that most people would instantly discredit as mentally insane. She told me she assumes the blue house has been secretly controlled by a witch. Hyunjae must have discovered her during his research, upon which she described to silence him permanently. I had seen enough to actually believe that these things, despite them sounding ridiculous. But could we really be absolutely certain? I, for one, wanted more solid evidence. Hyunjae sighed and showed me some pictures. They were pictures of an altar. The altar was stained with blood. There were chalk outlines of a dead body and yellow place tape all around it. The sudden shock upon seeing this made me look away. Hyunyan decided to keep going despite my squeamish reaction. She kept showing me pictures of various incidences that had happened, and told me they had been kept secret by applying pressure to the media. In other words, someone high-ranking was covering up murders. She told me to pay close attention to the photos. There is a particularly strong and malevolent witch, known for having to be summoned through a sacrificial offering, who has enough power to bring the whole country down to its knees. Hyunyan showed me more data about the witch that she had gathered. All of it sent shivers down my spine. After having told me everything she knew, Hyunyan recommended I quit my job. She said one person alone is too powerless to do anything. She promised me to mobilize all her connections to the occult research scene. All I could do was nod slowly. Terrified by what I had seen and heard, I felt extreme fear and didn't want to be involved in the case any longer. Witch records tracking the witch 5. When Ho Yan went missing, I tried convincing myself that there must have been a good harmless reason. After 2 days, I realized how naive it must have been. Ho Yan J was found dead. Despite its massive influence, the Blue House could not keep the news out of the press this time. Police officially declared the death a homicide, the cause of death being massive trauma. Strangely enough, her death shared a lot of similarities of Yan Jie's. Yan Jie and Ho Yan. Did this malevolent witch of ruin inside of the Blue House really kill them? Despite its horrible nature, people didn't seem to pay much attention to Ho Yan's death overall. There was a reason for that one, as just 1 day later, the biggest political corruption scandal of all time came to light. It all started with a tiny USB stick. It contained information about our then still president's secret dealings, was found in the offices of a shadow company. Though highly sensitive, it had fallen under a desk and had simply been forgotten about. A current affairs program called News Trace had managed to get its hand on the stick, revealing multiple corruption scandals. I wasn't intrigued by the scandal and focused on finding out the truth about the deaths of those close to me. Nobody else seemed to care about it in the least. With chaos raging in the Blue House's halls, I decided to see if Ho Yan had secretly hidden more information. Ho Yan must have known that she was in danger. Maybe she had left something behind in case of her death. If she did, I'd have to do whatever it takes to find it. Witch records tracking the witch 6. Yan Xie and Ho Yan had been the only other people who knew, and with both of them dead, I felt lonely and scared being the only one aware of this terrible truth. Fortunately, the entire Blue House had no time to pay attention to what I was doing. With the uproar about the scandal spreading, the unprepared government had its plate full, which inspired me to be a little more courageous. I went to Hu Yan's office. Her secretary was there, about to clear out the filing cabinets. I persuaded the secretary to let me have Hu Yan's notes on the witch, and found some very important clues in there. It was information about the location of the witch's summoning. According to the notes, the witch would have to be summoned for a particular place. So far, I hadn't noticed anything special about the locations involved. I decided to dig deeper into the notes. If the witch had already been summoned somehow and is now walking the earth, there has to be more info on it. The secretary handed me the key and left. Understandably, she wanted nothing to do with this whole thing. I found a short handwritten note by Ho Yan. It says, "If a preferred location happens to be unavailable, the witch will propose a suitable alternative." Wow. According to Ho Yan's notes, the witch could be summoned from an alternate location. One place come to mind, a place our president has frequently, strangely, often since entered Parliament. Word around the Blue House was that he had buried his beloved dog there, who had accompanied him since his childhood years. But what if there was a different, much darker reason for this memorial? What if this was, in fact, the place the president visited to summon the witch? I felt shivers down my spine. This is it. That's the place. The source of all this tragedy. And unfortunately, this is also the place of her demise. Tracking the witch 7. Having given it a lot of thought, I approached News Trace. Their team embraced it with open arms. No doubt because they already knew I was a Blue House insider. I assume they were thirsting for behind-the-scenes info on the scandal that shook the nation. After much deliberation, I told a man who worked there, PD Seok-hyun Kim, about the murders. I made sure to hide information about cult-like religions and witches, instead focusing on the fact that the government had innocent civilians murdered. PD Seok-hyun Kim fortunately believed me, and from that day on I started digging into the case further with his aid. We focused on the missing people. The media didn't know of the cases, and neither did the families of the victims, which is very unusual for brutal murder cases. Wouldn't there be info out there in today's internet age? Sure enough, we managed to identify one victim already following the leads. The deeper we looked into it, the more apparent the government's involvement became. It was only a hunch, but enough to work with. All we had to do was stir up enough trouble to get the guys hiding in the shadows to stick their heads out. Just a few weeks after we had made our discoveries, news trades reported on the shocking truth behind it all, and how people who knew too much were killed. Then the president publicly admitted he was merely a puppet. All eyes throughout the nation were on the Blue House, on a corrupted government that would even stoop down to murder. But the power pulling the strings from the shadows disappeared, with nearly no traces left. A demonic puppet master all but vanished. That in itself was a mocking display of the power of this evil entity. It was gone, but enough traces about its presence had been left to make valid, tangible accusations, and the president was impeached after a nationwide report. I watched all of this from a distance, knowing more than the average citizen. It was still hard to believe that this Witch of Ruin was real. Perhaps the entire Blue House became possessed by something that never actually existed. What if this illusion itself is what we would call the witch? Was it really her? And she just so happened to leave when things got uncomfortable. A year had passed since all of this happened. Although I've never spoken about it to anyone, the rumor of a witch having done all of this spread throughout South Korea as an urban legend, a ghost story. Some would probably criticize this book for being nothing more than a collection of urban myths too, but for me, the memory is a lot more than just a scary fairy tale. It is the truth of the horrors that happened, even if only a handful of people believe this. That's enough, exactly. This feels like what's happening at the moment with the UK government and all the parties that they did in 2020, when everybody else was abiding by the rules because of the government's rules. But of course the government thinks that they're infallible. The Undead and their records. Undead Survey Diaries 1. About the author. Young Kwee Shin is one of today's finest Korean horror writers. Having made her grand debut with the work Teeth of Rot, following up with The Hanging Man and Nightcrawler, after dabbling in the mystery genre for a while, she returned to her roots with Stinging Stares, a modern interpretation of the classic Undead mythos. It is a compilation of the actual diary notes she had kept while staying in a rural village for 15 days in order to research the undead. Author's words. When I revealed that Stinging Stares was based on my personal experience, many people wanted to know more. 2 years have passed since that book was published. I think it's time for me to finally tell the whole story. This is not a fictional tale by a horror writer, but a very terrifying true story rooted in the occult. Let's see now. Month X Day X Sunny. Tackling my new project caused me quite a few headaches. My last 2 books after Nightcrawler failed miserably. Another dud would really tarnish my reputation as a writer, so there's a lot riding on this next project. I wanted to be pure horror again with a focus on the occult, and decided to pick the undead as the focal point. Is it wrong for me to do so? To turn such a serious matter into entertainment? I spoke to the well-known occult researcher Hyeon. Them again? They were within the witch one just not too long ago. On the phone, she had already helped me greatly 4 years ago when I worked on Nightcrawler. We agreed to meet up tomorrow. I hope she can offer some guidance. Wow. I visited Hyeon Jae today. She told me she had really enjoyed Nightcrawler and was looking forward to working together again. We reviewed a lot of material with potential for a novel, and some of the things she showed me were completely new to me. In particular, a bunch of newspaper articles about a string of serial killings. The articles were short and without photos, and in all of them the victims acted confused and unlike themselves before going missing and turning up dead soon thereafter. Hyeon said this is the work of an undead, with a straight face, and showed me more material. I understand that she's an occult researcher and really means it, but all of it just sounded a little too far out there for an ordinary person like me. The material itself, however, was quite interesting, so I happily bought it from her. I start working my way through it all. Tomorrow, Undead Records 2. Okay, this is a little different. A lot of it has been cropped out now from the initial attack writing. I spent all day at home going over new material that Hyoyam had provided me. Despite its questionable authenticity, the material made several interesting points about the undead actually existing. The particular undead suspected to be the culprit in the killings had even been given a nickname, rigor mortis. This was the first time I ever heard of such a creature having a name. Even more amazing was the fact that it supposedly had its own language. All of these creatures had unique traits, and this one in particular spoke a language from hell. I have so many questions. What does it use its demonic language for? To communicate with the devil? Is there a direct connection between this creature and hell itself? Who knows? Looking at all the research data has given me some ideas. First of all, I decided to rid myself of all the preconceived notions about the undead I've had. If they can still instill magic into a stiff dead body, does that mean their appearance can change indefinitely? I decided to switch the location of my novel from China to Germany. Some of my favourite authors are German. It would give my story a serious touch as a literacy work. I decided to call it Steen Stairs, which looks similar to the German word steri. It means something like stiff, a word fitting for the dead, inspired by the name rigor mortis. I think it's a fitting name and a nice play on words. I have a good feeling about this. The project is starting to take shape, with an ellipsis on the end. Undead Records, Findings 3. I started to have doubts about the novel and my progress. Hasn't this subject quite literally been done to death? Pun right there. There is so much material I've analysed, and yet I feel like I've reached my creative limit. I quit writing and started looking at everything from scratch. I focused my attention on the village where the undead in question had last been seen. So you go from writing to investigating the said matter. I concluded that my research was insufficient. I should go visit the village myself. Is it Hope Hill Village by any chance? There are some ideas you can only get while out in the field. I called the editor about my plan, and he told me not to cause any problems for the locals and keep a low profile. I can do that. I've learned from past projects. I ate dinner and packed my things. I think things will be busy for me starting tomorrow. And alas, I headed for the village right after breakfast, but a sudden downpour caused me to arrive later than planned. 3 villagers had died under similar circumstances as the ones in my research material. Occult researchers all shared the same opinion, that this was the work of the undead nicknamed rigor mortis. On my way to the small place I'd booked to stay at, I noticed strange writing on the front door of an old house. I recognized it from my research materials, some sort of magic symbolism. Looks like it's something to keep the undead away. A detailed magic circle to keep it away. Interesting. The villagers mockingly told me the owner's son had been murdered, and that he was sure there had been an undead who did it. It appears most people here tend to not believe in such myths. I arrive at my accommodation before sunset. I think I'll call it a day and rest now. Undead Records 4. A young man arrived here this morning. He ended up staying in the room directly opposite mine. The owner told me he's a reporter of some sort of occult magazine. News Trace? Or the monthly Maxine. I started walking around after lunch trying to interview the locals to find out more, but something felt strange. These people were supposedly very skeptical of the undead's existence, seemed very weary of me and tried to avoid me. With my interviews not going that well, I went for a stroll and encountered an old woman who slapped me. She screamed at me not to mention the undead again. A nearby villager stopped her. Later on I found out she's the mother of a young man who was killed. I wanted to find out more. Will this creature strike again? Could it be more than coincidence that these strange drawings were showing up more frequently? I asked the locals, but none of them were able to provide good leads. It was clear to me that these symbols were of supernatural origin. The reporter staying in my room opposite of mine knocked on my door to talk to me. His name's Ho-Jin Lee. He's a reporter of an occult magazine. He said he knows I'm investigating the murder that happened, and told me to leave it because it's too dangerous. Really now? He urged me to leave the village as soon as possible. When he saw my sour reaction, Ho-Jin reluctantly started to show me various pictures. There were photographs of an altar covered in blood, with a white chalk outline indicating that a body had been discovered there. Ho-Jin told me to pay close attention to the offering placed on the altar. According to Ho-Jin, this offering is used in summoning rituals, and the right placement and angle of it is known only to those deeply familiar with the subject matter. This was not a regular homicide, but a full-blown occultic ritualistic murder instead. I asked him to leave it as it is. I asked him to leave as it all became too much for me. He looked frustrated when he left. It's hard to tell what he was thinking. It's scary to see what vile evil lurks out there in the real world. Today was exhausting, but all this information also provided me with plenty of inspiration. Undead Records 5. A week has passed since my arrival. I was told the old woman was cursed me out and slapped me, had been sent to a nursing home paid for by the villagers who had saved money for her. I wanted more details, but nobody was willing to talk to me. I think they're hiding something. The occult reporter Ho-Jin Lee appears to be conducting his own investigation. We nod and greet each other when we meet, but we don't talk about the case. He sort of seems to think I'm in danger, but I don't know the details. The village itself is strangely quiet. It's hard to find inspiration when nothing is happening. Is the pressure of having to write a hit getting to me? I wonder what sort of danger Ho-Jin is talking about, and if it's worth writing about. I was up at dawn, sensing a presence nearby. I saw a human silhouette in my window. I also heard the sound of footsteps. I actually ran straight to Ho-Jin's room to tell him about it. He told me he had seen a suspicious shadow as well, and left after telling me to stay inside for my own safety. I thought I was overreacting, but I still felt scared deep down. Ho-Jin, who had run off, returned after lunchtime. He said he had followed the suspicious shadow to a nearby warehouse. He had after he saw it enter the warehouse, and after a long time it left again and walked away, disappearing. He headed inside, and noticed it wasn't a warehouse, but a painting studio instead. Ho-Jin showed me some pictures he had taken there. It was horrifying to see. As the pictures showed corpses hanging upside down, the bodies had all been brutally butchered, which Ho-Jin claimed was part of a summoning ritual of the undead. Also, there was a picture showing Ho-Jin and me as well. For some reason we were being watched. Ho-Jin went back to his room and kept telling me to leave the place right now. I don't quite believe the tales about the undead, but what we found out in that room disturbed me. But I can't let that distract me from my original goal. I have to write all this down. This is perfect material to work with. If I stay here a little longer, I'm sure I can turn it into a fully new book. Just a few more days. I feel like my writer's block will be gone soon. Undead Record 6. I am now out of the countryside in a remote motel along the highway. My hands are still shaking. I still can't tell if what I've just experienced was real. Until yesterday I'm sure everything would be fine. I stayed in the village despite Ho-Jin's urgent warnings, and was just about to finish up things. I didn't get much sleep and was fully focused on writing. Since I was staying up so late, I heard someone sneaking around just outside my door. I carefully peeked outside and saw it was Ho-Jin. My first thought was he was going somewhere to investigate, but then I decided to follow him quietly and observe. I somehow felt like he'd led me to the answers I've been looking for, but maybe it was just my paranoia. Maybe this village was starting to affect me subconsciously. I quietly followed his footsteps. The pouring rain was loud enough to cover the sounds of my own footsteps. Ho-Jin arrived at the building he told me about, and that's where he discovered me following him. He was angry and scolded me for having stayed, but then he told me that this place is where the villagers always gather at dawn, trying to summon the undead. He told me to return to the motel and he would go check out another place. I already followed him out here on my own, and after we argued because I insisted on staying, he reluctantly took the lead. Let's see, can we click on the next page? Okay. Ho-Jin and I arrived at an ominous looking spot. I didn't know such a place existed near the village. Ho-Jin explained to me that this was one of the locations where the undead called rigor mortis could be summoned from. Lots of villagers were gathered there, chanting strange words for a ritual. Upon closer inspection, I saw a person tied up in the middle of that I recognized. It was the mother of the young man who had died, who had supposedly been sent to a nursing home. Ho-Jin got out his camera and took pictures from afar, and I was already starting to regret having come here. I could feel pure evil all around us. After a short while, the villagers suddenly stopped chanting.
They slowly turned their heads, looking in our direction. Ho-Jen grabbed my arm and we ran. Have they seen us already? I couldn't think straight at that moment. Back at the village, Ho-Jen told me to grab only what I needed. I fled with nothing but a small handbag and my laptop. Ho-Jen was waiting for me in his car, and just as we were about to leave, the motor owner ran out, furiously trying to stop us. Luckily, the car was faster than him. That's how we escaped. I need to calm down. I don't think they'll chase us all the way here. I need some rest badly. Both of us are shaken up and exhausted. Wow, all of them just turning around all at once. That's scary. I can imagine coming into class late and everyone was just staring at you for turning up late. Undead Records 7. That concludes my diary entries about the village. In truth, I still can't quite believe what I saw just before leaving. Were the villagers really trying to summon this undead creature? We went to the police as soon as the sun had risen. We didn't mention supernatural undead beasts. Our story was that those villagers followed a wicked cult and were killing people in the name of their religion. The police didn't seem to be fully satisfied with me with the info we supplied, and honestly, we aren't sure if we could trust these policemen. Ho-Jen and I had pictures and other material that we provided as evidence for the crimes that had happened, but all the files were suddenly corrupted. It took a week before I heard something from the police about the incident again. They asked us if we were 100% sure of our claims, and that the village in question was abandoned a long time ago already, and is nothing more than a desolate ghost town. Ho-Jen and I felt like absolute fools. If that's the case, then who were the people we saw there? I'm in Germany, right? I am in Germany right now. I came here with the excuse that I'd finished my novel here, but I haven't been back to Korea for 2 whole years. Even though I'm far away, I'm plagued by nightmares and horrible images of that village. All I can see are the chanting villagers, slowly turning their heads towards me, staring through my very soul. Fox Spirit! Fox Spirit Hunting Diaries 1. Jung Kim was one of the greatest hunters during the Japanese colonial era. He kept meticulous hunting diaries. One in particular that sticks out is from his later years, about his hunt of the fabled 9-tailed fox spirit. Aided by Watan Han, an expert on this legendary creature, Chun-Ho Kim was tasked with hunting the fox spirit, and their story is one that rivals modern novels in suspense. Surprisingly, these diaries were proven to be authentic and genuine, with characters and events matching other historical records of the time. Did this mythical fox spirit really exist? Editor's notes. 1919, month something, date something. Jun-Young Kim received a secret letter from Yamamoto. Yes, the same Yamamoto who wrote the Jinho Guy, a businessman known for his love for hunting and capturing wild predators. The contents of his letter are as follows. My fellow hunter, it is imperative you read this at once. First of all, let me be clear that this letter's contents are confidential. Sharing it would have dire consequences. During my last expedition, I hunted 2 great tigers and Hamyang. During this expedition, witnesses reported seeing a 9-tailed fox, who allegedly got shot and managed to escape despite its wounds. The expedition came to an abrupt halt the very next day, when all the witnesses who claimed to have seen it were found dead. I am secretly working with the provincial government to investigate the strange matter and find out what happened. Upon receipt of this letter, go see the local chief of police at the provincial office immediately. There is an excerpt of Chunyo's diary. Beneath it is a small handwritten note by Jung Kim. This man appears too cowardly to hunt the beast himself. However, he knew he could not ignore Yamamoto's orders. Retired, in hopes of living his last remaining years in peace. He felt deep down that this may as well be his last hunt forever. No next page included. Fox Spirit Records 2. Fox Spirit Hunting Diaries. 1919, month X, day X. It is written that Chinyo said goodbye to his family when he left for the hunt, as he would on any other regular day. An expert on the matter named Wan Tae Han was waiting for him at the Hamgyong provincial government. A scholar fascinated by old books, he had read every single piece of literature about the legendary fox spirit in existence. He offered Jinhyo to answer every potential question, and was excited at the thought of finally seeing the fox with his own 2 eyes. Chunyan asked him about what to do, or what to be on the lookout for to track the animal, and Wante offered some wholly unexpected advice. He mentioned a specific strange text. The fox spirit uses a unique language to communicate. It is known as a language from hell. Wante explained it in great detail. He said this fox spirit had been nicknamed Heart Piercer, and that many people in the province where it was seen still secretly worship it as a spirit beast deity of sorts. What does that have to do with the mission? Those who worship this Heart Piercer thinks it brings them good fortune, but if you find the text they gather their information from, it may lead you to it. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Next page, please. The governor of South Hyeongan province at that time, Lee Won-hwan, Japanese Asada Ryo, took note of Wante's claims. He ordered the province to be searched for every piece of writing potentially containing information. Junhyun wrote the following in his diary in response to this. This order only served as a free pass to lay waste to local villages. No means exists that could help locate something so elusive. Did Wante not realize this before he opened his mouth? He must have been blinded by his desire to find the Great Spirit. The Fox Spirit, sorry. Wante seemed to not care about the damage his information had caused, and the next meeting between the two men was far from pleasant. Yikes. Fox Spirit Records 3. The hunt for the Fox Spirit under the orders of Governor Lee had begun. Wante concluded that the Fox Spirit was most likely to be found in the Banyuan-san area, and the greatest hunters from all over the country heeded the call. Chunhyo would be one leading them. Wante handed each hunter a symbol that he had drawn by hand himself. He told them to keep it close and never let it go. "What's this?" an older hunter asked. Wante replied, "It is a magic circle to protect you." Wante stated that this fox spirit in particular, Heart Spirit, rejects magic circle and can be kept away with its help. That's why carrying it around would be vital in protecting the hunters. However, the police chief had been listening and ordered the drawers to be removed immediately. He walked up to Wante and slapped him across the face. He angrily shouted at Wante, saying all of this would only drive the fox spirit deeper into hiding, and one after another the hunters tore their drawings apart. Whoa. Chunhyo wrote the following in his diary in response to the symbols being torn apart. "On this day, we have lost our last remaining sliver of hope. Our safety is obviously of no concern to those in charge. It seems they're more than willing to hunt the fox spirit at the cost of all our lives." Exactly, but it literally lambs at this point. Wante also voiced concerns and complaints to Chunhyo on that day, but he was not angry because the lives of good men were at risk. Instead, his frustration stemmed from now being unable to prove that his feelings and theories were true. Chunhyo only left a short notice in regards to Wante. He is not a man, but a pitiful child who thinks life takes place at only a desk. Oh dear. At only a desk. Fox Spirit Records 4. The group of hunters led by Chunhyo Kim, alongside Wante Han and several Japanese policemen, had followed the clues and was searching the region around the mountains. Many talented hunters had gathered there. Wante Han's records show that he was particularly impressed with a 17-year-old hunter named Yanchi Park. With everyone gathered, Wante suggested they should try summoning it first. That way it would come to them, and they could skip the arduous search. The hunters looked baffled when they were basically told that they would not have to hunt. They knew no other way, for this was how they had always hunted in the past. Wante spoke in a strange language. He drew a symbol, taking out a sacrificial offering. He said this was crucial in getting the fox spirit to show. Never having seen such a ritual before, the hunters and policemen watched with great interest. No matter how hard Wante tried, the fox spirit did not show up, and the ritual was deemed a failure. Wanted insisted he succeed with a little more preparation, but Junhyo stopped him. He argued the Fox Spirit might have noticed them and could escape should they waste more time. A short argument ensued, but Wante had to give in, as all the hunters sided with Junhyo and agreed with his way of thinking. Yikes. Wante did not give up easily, however, and kept begging to come with the hunters. Wante insisted that he would have to see him, for it was his life's one true goal. Junhyo eventually agreed and assigned the youngest hunter, Wancho Park, as Wante's personal guard. Junhyo wrote the following in his diary that day. We had hoped to minimize casualties on our side, but Wante's plan failed. His way is not that of a true hunter anyway. From now on, we will hunt this fox spirit our way, with proven methods. I just hope that pesky expert stays out of our way. We will see about that. Fox Spirit Records 5. It has been 2 weeks since Junhyo's group set out to hunt the Fox Spirit, and there certainly have been results. A 2-man team of hunters even saw the Fox Spirit and tried to shoot it. However, something was wrong with them the next day. Junhyo ordered them to be watched closely, suspecting the Fox Spirit's magic at work, but they eventually simply vanished, just like the previous reported victims. Junhyo said it's too dangerous to go out at night, so they set out at a search party at sunrise. It didn't take long for them to find the 2 missing hunters. They had been brutally killed, their mangled and twisted bodies on display at some sort of strange altar. Wante explained that this brutal method of killing exactly resembles that of a fox spirit named Heartpiercer from old records. In other words, the prey had now become a predator. Junhyo recovered the 2 bodies and ordered all hunters to gather and to clean the rifles as well. They collectively vowed to hunt down and slay the creature. The atmosphere at their camp had turned grim. That same night an incident happened. Wante was inspecting one of the corpses when another hunter suddenly attacked him. Why'd you do that? The hunter was furious and asked if this was some sort of sick joke, and Wante insisted this analysis was necessary. The fight between the 2 only ended with the young hunter Wancho Park stepped in to break it up. Junhyo asked Wante to best avoid the other hunters for the time being. Wante didn't take it too well. On this gloomy day, Junhyo wrote the following in his journal before going to bed. We are no longer ones doing the hunting. Wow. But you're ones being the hunted. Fox Spirit Records 6. A month has passed since Junhyo's hunt for the Fox Spirit began. 7 hunters had already met their end. 5 of them appeared to be under the Fox Spirit's curse. 2 officially killed by the creature itself. There was no sign of it being captured anytime soon, and Junhyo and his group were getting tired. When Wancho Park died, Wante kept crying all night. Wancho Park, who had served as Wante's bodyguard, had been the only hunter who had ever gotten along with. The death of this brave young man not only deeply saddened Wante, but all the other hunters as well. Something happened that night. Wante visited Junhyo's tent and told him he had found something new. He needed to try summoning the Fox Spirit again, not for himself, but for all the hunters who had lost their lives. Junhyo listened to Wante for the first time instead of ignoring him. They had a long discussion about how to proceed, and Wante was clearly very emotional while talking about this new plan. He said that another look at his research had shown him what went wrong last time. This time, he'd be able to do the proper ritual required to summon the Fox Spirit. Wante said that the proper location would be a fair distance away, and to pack things up and head there as soon as possible. How did they get such information in the first place though? It's still a mystery to me. Alongside the other, monster types. He reportedly said not to worry too much this time. Furthermore, he added that it may actually be a disadvantage to do this with too many hunters present. Having heard about all this correct ritual procedure, Junhyo said he'd go alone. He didn't want to see any more precious lives taken. Wante said he would come with him. In a way, he felt responsible for everything that had happened until now. Junhyo agreed to let Wante accompany him. Junhyo's feelings are well documented in his last diary entry. The whole idea of this hunt was wrong from the start. Good, smart people died for bad, foolish reasons. I think it is about time for all of this to end. 2 people, Wante Han and I, will take these last few steps. together. Wante is the one who helped start the hunt, and I was one made to lead the hunters, so it is only right for the two of us to take responsibility. The last entry for the Fox Spirit Records Hunting Diaries? This is where Chunyo's story ends, but more is revealed in the records of Wante, who stayed with him throughout everything. Even though Chunyo never quite liked Wante, he must have trusted him deeply towards the end. The two of them went on a long trek to find the appropriate location for the Fox Spirit summoning ritual. The plan was simple. Wante would summon the beast, Chunyo would kill it. Records show that Wante succeeded, and that the creature fought fiercely with Chunyo. Wante managed to escape and hide after the summoning, and was planned in advance. Chunyo had told him he'd just been away. 3 shots rang out. A terrible roar was heard. Then the area felt silent again. Wante was scared to death and hid for over an hour, barely managing to return to the scene. Chunyo had died. The fox was nowhere to be seen, either having fled or vanished into thin air. Breaking down in tears, Wante held Chunyo's lifeless body in his arms. After everything they had been through and poured into this endeavor, he felt terribly guilty. Wante's records from this day as follows. When I recovered Chunyo's body, I was surprised at how little he was carrying. It's as if he had predicted this outcome. I didn't want to make it too hard for me. He never once showed fear or hesitation, and he wants to keep his beast away from others until his last breath. Wante kept this summoning a secret, and reported the death of Chunyo as well as the failure of the hunt to his superiors. Fear of the beast spread throughout the entire country, and hunters stopped chasing this now mythical beast. The hunt had failed, and the fox spirit had disappeared, hidden away from prying eyes. Nobody knows where it went after all of this took place. And when Wante dies, so will the knowledge of how to summon this beast will be as well. But then again, how did Wante discover the appropriate location, the appropriate needs to summon it in the first place? Again, this is supernatural stuff. Last but not least, a hidden text in the hidden records. I am a dragon from a place far away, and also this place is spirit guardian. I'm settled here when the village's first stone was laid, promising the head of the village to keep a watchful eye over it for all eternity. It is hard to remind myself of that promise now. One day, the head of the village left and never returned. I stayed still, having sworn to always protect the village, but when evil spread throughout the area and plague ruled the land, its inhabitants left, one after the other. Now, I am hiding in this cave, quietly observing what's going on outside. What manner of vile evil spread disease throughout my village, and what's happening to my precious home right now? Maybe reading this will allow you to discover the truth of what's going on, how it all started, and who orchestrated this malicious plan. I truly believe you will be able to piece it all together. I do hope the knowledge of this cave will aid you. I also pray that next time you are here, we will have the opportunity to talk face to face. May the rest of your journey end well. That was the Divine Spirit, and it knew that this is going to be some kind of cyclical nature where these events will happen multiple times. We would come back to this ritual again and again, should we fail. Fanatic notes. I heard the motel owner talking to himself. I'm hiding in some strange cave right now. I don't even really know where I am. I was just trying to hide in my room and ended up here. No matter how weird that is, something else is much more important right now. We were all deceived by him. From the very first second, Novena Diabolos was a lie from top to bottom. A farce. Novena Diabolos was just false information that Satan sneakily fed to guide us. Gullible, foolish humans. There we go. Why? Mammon sacrificed his body for Satan. So why would Satan deceive and trick us faithful followers of Mammon? I'm lucky. I don't think they know I found out the truth. As soon as I heard the motel owner started mumbling, I ran straight to my room before anyone noticed me. I have to tell the other loyal priests about my discovery. An ominous scroll. Behold all these pathetic rats following the traitor Mammon. Satan truly enjoyed the betrayal of Mammon, but the game ended with Mammon dying. I remember Satan staring at Mammon's wide-open, blood-spewing neck. I proposed another fun game at that point. The idea of it was to bring Mammon's remains into a human realm. His rot would undoubtedly bring chaos to Earth, and Satan agreed, but he did not laugh, even upon seeing Mammon's body rotting and the death that came with it. It was not until the last villager was either dead or otherwise gone that he smirked. Upon learning of Mammon's death, his followers started praying to him, praising his martyrdom. Satan was highly entertained by that term. It was then that I started to understand his sense of humor. Naturally, I prepared another fantastic deception for his pleasure, a deception that would wreak havoc among Mammon's supporters, even the most faithful ones. It is my pleasure to manage this quaint motel, a front row seat from where I can watch it all unfold. That was from the motel owner. He is secretly betraying Mammon and going behind his back for the sake of Satan. Last but not least, and something which I kept until now, Novena Diabolos' development notes. The initial concept of Novena Diabolos included 6 female characters. Over the course of development, the number was reduced to 5, with Kim Yuna ended up as one being cut out. Kim Yuna was a high school student and a track star. She was friends of a monster. She came to Hope Hill Village in hopes of finding her hellish friend again. The randomized system meant that she could be either human or siren. Kim Yuna was a young, hot-headed girl fitting the adorable idiot cliché different from all the other characters. Though well received internally, she just did not fit the game's overall atmosphere, and stuck out too much when compared to the other possible routes. We would have loved for you to enjoy the quirky arguments between Kim Yun and Jun Sun, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. That's it for the development. The development of this game. Wow. That's it then. That's everything for the village logs and the monster notes. Monster info. Alongside that, all of these wonderful gallery pieces. What a game this has been. What a fantastic tale. And what a time reading through all of those logs and stuff like that. Like, that in itself is just something wonderful. Just going through and finding the lore of this game and stuff like that. Trying to piece together everything that happened and stuff like that. Although if I were to try and put together my own kind of like theories about all of this stuff, then that would take far too long. So I'm just going to leave it up to your interpretations as the viewer, if you made it this far into the video or not, to speculate what happened here. Essentially, this was the works of 2 different devil entities, Satan himself and Mammon. But in the end, Mammon was just used as a disposable tool for Satan, and Mammon's sacrifice was required for Novena Diabolos to actually be real. And then it invades Hope Hill Village. And I think at the moment of Mammon's death, did the smog cover the entire village, which was indicated in Sumi's route, because that thing, or that route actually talked about the abandoning of the village itself, Hope Hill Village. And then from there, like, the disease came about and stuff like that, and everybody just left the village, aside from the dragon that laid hidden within the cave itself. So that is going to conclude Novena Diabolos and everything lore-wise that has come about for this game. Monster info, though, I feel like I should have read first, because of that, none of it had anything to do with Hope Hill Village. That was records of the monster itself and how it behaves in a way. So the vampire obviously sucks the life out of people and murders them. Succubus, that was never truly defined, although the author itself, or the personnel, Federico, was really obsessed to the point of being killed in his search for a succubus. But he still didn't manage to summon the succubus, but in a way he was killed by it because he wanted to find out more about it and summon it and stuff like that. So indirectly he was killed by it, for which obviously vanished into thin air because it was found out that the government itself was led by a corrupted president that was being controlled by the Witch of Ruin. The Undead, this was rigor mortis, although it's kind of like a similar scenario of Hope Hill Village. You know, the entire village being governed by a cult being driven by a religion. And the Fox Spirit, well, that was more of a solidarity thing where the Fox Spirit didn't lead or he didn't have like a cult following, but it's like this solo creature that just roams around, hidden, being this mythical being. But that wasn't something I expected from the development though, so I expected something like about like how the game transpired and like that from the developer's perspective. But it's really interesting to see Kim Yuna in the game itself.